Hello and welcome back to another episode of Autodidactica. I am one of your hosts, Glenn Clark.
I am the other, Matt Paul.
Together we are Battlestar Galactica, the dual host of Autodidactica, where we talk about all kinds of crazy stuff. This week's topic, before I forget, it's a long. We're just going off of our notes from our brainstorming meeting, plotting out a year of podcast topics. This one we're calling Christianity, Satanism, and Ethics. Is religion more good or bad? So, another one of our
Just,
light-hearted
just a
topics.
simple topic.
Right. Yeah, it'll last 5 minutes. I mean,
Casually
what do
talk
you
about over breakfast.
right.
We have
Right.
breakfast over here at least.
Right. Truth. Yeah. Yeah. Like we do this all the time. Matt and I, that's why we were like, you know what? We should be making a podcast.
Yeah, the conversation, like Autodidactica is literally a recording of how our normal conversations go. Because we normally start off with, "Hey, how was your day? Oh, it was good. I did this. I did that." And
Right.
then we end up discussing Christianity, Satanism, and ethics. Is the religion
Yeah.
more good or bad?
Yeah. It's just a typical conversation for us.
Yeah,
So,
then I stay up too late. Glenn doesn't go to sleep
at all.
and goes to work, and it's just how it goes around here.
Yeah. Yeah. But it works. It's how we do things, it's how we live our lives. No,
Mm-hmm.
no
Mm-hmm.
regrets.
No regrets.
No regurgitations. No regrets and no regurgitations.
No.
Um, but so last week we did
The
what do we
afterlife.
the afterlife.
Is there an afterlife?
hmm This week it's Christianity, Satanism, ethics, and the like, religion. Next week we're doing the death
Karma.
penalty.
Yeah, no, death. Yeah, karma, then the death penalty.
Oh, we're doing karma. Karma is
Karma
next.
is next week. Yeah.
Okay, that's right. That's right. Because we switched them one out because we thought we needed more time, and that's the one
Yeah.
after the death penalty. So
Karma
yeah,
flows well into death penalty.
it does. It really does. Um,
We're on a bit of a tear right now.
we are. It's kind of going in a direction of a sort, at least for a little while.
Suicide, then afterlife, then religion. Oh, before suicide
Was it
was
aliens? Was he?
no, it was like God. It was like
Oh, defining God.
defining God.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
that's
we're just on
right.
a bit of a tear here.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool. I like it a lot. So yeah, before we get into it, so what's new with you? How?
Not much. Work has been non-existent. So me, a lowly CAD tech, the
Mhm.
only CAD tech in my work that still has days off, has been asked to take all of them.
Or your vacation days?
My vacation days, yeah,
Yeah.
because they don't roll over into next year, so I might as well use them. And none of the other CAD techs have any left, so everybody's just like, "Hey, there's not enough work to go around." Because everybody's in for the holidays, nobody's buying houses,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I worked Tuesday this week. It is currently Friday, and
Wow.
uh, I didn't work last Friday because of Christmas,
hmm
and then weekend, and then Monday because of Christmas, and then I worked Tuesday, and then I've been off ever since.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
So
I've just been
wow,
chilling. I've been
that's good.
sleeping like nobody's business. And yeah, so, I mean, got some stuff done around the house. Needed to
hmm
get done, put curtains up, and
Yeah, and it
did
looks so
things.
good.
Yeah, so that's been my week. That's what's new with me. What about you, Glenn?
Me, nothing. All right, so moving on to the topic. I'm kidding.
Yeah,
No,
fine by me.
no, I mean, me, I've been writing again, which is good. It's fun. It's therapeutic, cathartic. It's all of the things. Living parallel lives. I've been doing, like, if anybody reads my metronome stuff, I'm working on a short story there, and there's another one trying to push its way out, like probably right after this one, that's also metronomes. Those little guys are talking to me a lot right now. So that's been good. I like I like writing. I mean, that's the understatement of eternity that I like writing. Um
Yeah, I've noticed that about you.
right. And I got, I put all my published work up on this shelf. Like y'all can't see it even if you're watching YouTube because it's on the other side of the camera, but it helps inspire me to see all the things I've published and just reminds me that I'm working on a new manuscript and it's going somewhere. I'm actually juggling manuscripts because I'm also working on a novel, like a short story and a novel. And the novel is, I think I've mentioned it on here before. I wrote this novel when I was insane, is the working title. So I have no idea where that one's going, but I can't do that one every day. I have to be in a particular state of mind, unfortunately, to work on that one. So it's been nice to see that I can write more structured stories still as well, because I have been insane. It's cool. It's fun. I strive to be the most interesting person on my family tree 200 years from now, and being nuts helps.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, and also writing stuff and doing a podcast and all of that. You'll probably be the
Here,
most interesting person on your family tree as well in 200 years.
one can hope. Heroes get remembered, legends never die.
Right? True story. True story.
That's what I strive to be.
Yeah. Yeah. True. All right. Well, let's segue into the clumsily into the topic.
Yeah,
Just yeah.
let's do it.
That was my segue. How'd you like it?
It's pretty good.
I
I've
thought so.
heard better.
It's very
I've heard worse too.
but mostly better.
Yeah. So the overarching topic here is religion more good than bad, or vice versa? Is it more bad than good?
Right.
Um, you know, history of religions aside,
Mm-hmm.
religion has always existed alongside man.
Right.
Been worshiping spirits forever,
Right.
since before we could properly even communicate with each other. We've been drawing spirits and gods and worshiping
Yeah. Yeah.
since the beginning of man.
Yeah. Like I imagine it began with the sun. It probably did. Um,
Absolutely.
just because the sun comes up, you get warmth, things grow and thrive under the sunlight. Thank you, big light in the sky, for this harvest, for this
Right.
beautiful day and these flowers. It's and then the rain.
Right.
You
Give
have
us the
your
rain.
gods
Yeah.
of thunder and storms and lightning. Yeah, it's like, why is that happening? The gods are angry, the sun's being covered up, but at the same time, yeah, thank you for the rain. Thank you for water and the things that grow. So, I think that's the
That's where it
seed
came
of
from.
religion.
And
Yeah.
then so that was the seed of religion. And then people started, instead of hunting and gathering, we start forming civilizations where we grow food and raise livestock.
Yeah.
And the higher ups caught on to something. And they're like,
Uh,
hey, we need to control the masses somehow.
right.
Let's invent a religion. Let's create a god for the poor, uneducated people
Right.
to worship and be threatened by.
And be threatened by. Interesting. Like, I mean, okay, so what do you think, just generally speaking, do you think religions started more as people coming together in spirituality, like, and wanting to organize their ideas about the divine, the hereafter, and such? Or was it more started by governments? Because you look at antiquity and everything is a theocracy, pretty
Right.
much.
Interesting question, because I see where you're going with that.
Mhm.
No, I don't think that religion started as a gathering of spirituality. I think religion as a organization
Mhm.
started for controlling the masses.
Mm,
Because, like we just established, people have always been spiritual.
right.
Religion as a, what is the word that I'm looking for? As an institution,
Ah,
um,
yeah. Uh-huh.
it was began to gather the masses and then tell them how they should act.
Right.
And
Right. It's
yes,
mhm.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm just agreeing with you pretty much. I was gonna, yeah. They're telling them how to act. They're telling them, this is what's socially acceptable, and the law will now reflect that. Um, like I mean, we've already talked about abortion, and I don't think we ever even used that as an actual topic. It's just come
Mm-mm.
up. It's a hot button topic here in Texas right now.
Yeah, we were talking about
Uh,
the polarization of the political spectrum.
yeah, yeah, and like, but the big push to outlaw all abortion has mostly come from the religious right, as they feel that that is their religious duty is to stop women from aborting babies no matter
Absolutely.
the cost.
Which is a good segue into the other spectrum
Uh-huh.
of this topic is Satanism.
Right, because
There's
that's
an
oh sorry.
no,
Go on.
there's an
We
organization
talk
out
over each
there.
other.
There's a religious right that wants to ban abortions across the board, across the United States. And then
Right,
there is the Satanic Temple, or TST for short.
right, right.
And they are an organization that pretty much directly opposes the religious right.
Yes.
And they have even gone as far to incorporate the act of having an abortion into their
Oh
religion as
yeah.
a religious right, and have
Hmm.
won cases
Right.
in Alabama and Mississippi where members of their church cannot be like held liable for having an abortion because it is their religious right. It's in their
Right.
doctrines.
Yeah, like if you hold every religion to the same standards regarding the law, if you
Right.
really do, which is the way that it is supposed to be constitutionally, you have freedom of religion. You can choose whatever religion, or to simply not have religion at all in your life, whatever works best for you. That's your choice.
Freedom
And
from
so,
religion.
right, like there's a lot of people who argue that freedom of religion is not freedom from religion. And those are the people who basically want to turn the United States into a theocracy. They want all of the laws,
Which it
to be a
essentially
Christian
is.
nation, which, right, but it can't actually be, because there are literally hundreds of iterations of Christianity. If you just say we're a Christian nation, like, well, okay, which Christians? Are
Are
you
you
the
Baptist?
Christians? Yeah, are you Baptist? Are you Methodists? Are you Mormons? Are
Are
you
you non-denominational? Or
right? Exactly. And it's I
First
would
Church of Christ?
yeah, it's there's so many, literally hundreds. Are we Catholic? Like,
Lutheran?
Protestant or Catholic? Like, yeah, there's so many ways. Like, you can't just say we're going to be a Christian nation and follow the laws of Christianity, because there's no universal version of Christianity. There are certain core tenets
Catholicism?
that, right. Well, I mean, Catholic, the word means universal. Um, but it isn't universal. Like, it used to be the only Christianity, but it has splintered and such for centuries now.
All because
And
one king wanted a divorce.
right, right.
So
And
he
man,
invented a new church. Um,
I'm not gonna lie. Like, if you ever watch, oh, is it the Tudors that was the show
yeah,
about Henry VIII? Have you ever watched that?
no.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, it's hilarious that they put so much work into making Henry VIII sexy. That's funny, because
That is
Henry
funny.
VIII was not sexy,
No.
but I mean, it made it easier to watch. But what was really cathartic for me was that part of the story when he's like, to hell with the church, and just starts like attacking them, like, stealing all their stuff, kicking them out. I like, I'd had some church related issues about the time that I was watching that show, and I was like, this feels nice. You go, Henry VIII. Even though the dude was a solid psychopath, but I appreciated that part of the story being centuries removed from it, you know, and not actually, it's not really a reality for me. So it's all fiction to me, even though, it's historical, but might as well be fiction. But yeah, like, and there is a thing too, like the church trying to control people. Like you can or
Right.
cannot have a divorce granted by the church. The church back then made kings. The Pope was a king maker.
Right.
And you always had to get the blessing of the Pope to do things. But, back then, yeah. So it was basically a theocracy, almost like a Christian empire. All these kings answer to the Pope. Henry VIII was like, you know what? Hell no. I don't answer the Pope. I'm going to start my own church. And then you've got,
And the Irish have been fighting about it ever since.
right. Well, lots of people. Like, because, then we've got the Protestant movement when, freaking Martin Luther. Why are names escaping me? I think it was Martin Luther.
Martin Luther,
Yeah, who like you
the
know,
the, the grievances.
yeah, and they were brilliant. Just, all the stuff because it got to the church was basically putting a price tag on salvation that could not be attained. Or it's like you had to do so many good deeds in order to get into heaven, but they made it impossible on purpose because the alternative was, well, you can't possibly do enough good to save your soul at this point.
So pay.
If you pay, if you buy some indulgences, we will indulge you. And so rich people were doing all kinds of things, donating tons of money so that they could get into heaven. But it was the church controlling and manipulating, and Martin Luther had his fill of it. And he wasn't, the thing about religions is people like Jesus Christ himself was not trying to start a new religion. He was trying to reform Judaism from within. And so was Martin Luther. He was not trying to start the Protestant movement. He was trying to reform Catholicism. Um, and actually, Martin Luther was before, I want to say that was before Henry VIII.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Because it was
Martin
kind
Luther
of a
was like in the
fresh thing.
1600s.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, Protestantism has splintered into hundreds of denominations.
Yep. And now in the United States, at least in 13 states and mostly the South, you cannot hold state office unless you profess belief in a God,
Right, including in Texas, that's on the
including
books.
Texas. Yeah.
That if you're an atheist, you can't run, and that is a blatantly unconstitutional law. It's should be unenforceable. Like
Right.
just the fact that it's on the books is ridiculous because the Constitution, or you shall not make, or Congress shall make no law regarding religion. The
Right.
end. No law. Religion is religion. The law is the law. But there's a movement still in this country of people wanting theocracy.
Right.
And to me, the big danger of that, aside from it just sucking for people who don't profess the faith that would be ruling the world, it's that I feel like these people pushing for that don't understand that if they do get their favorite version of Christianity to rule the country, all the laws conform to Christianity. You are forced to go to church on Sundays by law, whatever it is. Like you've had politicians actually say that they think going to church should be the law, that you should have to go to church. I mean, it's not going to get any serious movement anywhere. It's not going to happen. But if it should, if these people get what they want, they don't realize that they've actually put their own religion in danger because all it takes is someone else to get in power who has, the political parties would be religions instead of Democrats, Republicans. It would be Christians, Muslims, Scientologists, like name a religion, they would have a political party in a theocracy.
Satanists.
Right. Well, I mean, unless they were outlawed, but then that leads to revolt, revolution, coups, and whoever wins the capital gets to decide what god we all worship. And it's ridiculous. So, secularism is useful to religious people. It protects all religions. If we allow a theocracy to thrive in this country, it wrecks everybody's religious experience because it's all the law and it's subject to change. You can change gods. It's just silly.
Just
but
look at the battle of denominations over there in the Middle East.
yeah, yeah. I
The
mean,
Muslims.
that's theocracy at its worst.
What is it? The Sunni and the Shiite.
I lose track of who's fighting who where. It's been millennia.
I don't know if I don't know if I'm
that
pronouncing it right, but it's Shiite, Sunni and Shiite.
I think it's Shiite.
Uh, uh, those two denominations have been battling. Like that was one of the main issues in Iraq before we invaded.
Uh-huh. Right.
The holding power was one denomination, and the majority of the populace was the other.
Uh-huh.
And so there was constant tension.
Yep. Yep. And that's something I'm gonna come right back to that. Like just something we didn't actually, I think, explain, like the whole Satanism, Christianity, and ethics part of this conversation.
Right.
Is that Satanism and Christianity are popularly viewed as the antithesis of one another. Like, and one is popularly viewed as the good guys, Christianity, the other popularly viewed as the villains, Satanists. And so we thought just the polar opposite, the day and night understanding of those religions by just the casual person who doesn't really know as much about either one of them, is that there's good guys, bad guys, but is it really that black and white? Is it really that binary? We thought that those two religions in particular would be a good like tent pole for this conversation, to like look at the issues of ethics and such, and religions being good or bad. But that said, Christianity has led to no small number of wars throughout its history, bloody wars. And this from a religion that claims to follow the quote unquote Prince of Peace, like the turn the other cheek guy. They want to go to war with people and kill babies over, who you worship and how. And it's, and that goes way back, like stuff in the Middle East, way, way back, into where it's like, history and mythology blend to where it's not really clear which is what. But the one of the first rifts in the Abrahamic faiths was with his sons, the very next generation, Isaac and Ishmael. Like Ishmael was his first son, Abraham's first son, who was born, like Abraham, if you read the Bible version of the story, like Abraham and his wife were old people, and they'd always wanted a kid, and they prayed for a kid, and God promised he would have a kid, and they're like, you know what, we're like 10 million years old, we're not going to have a kid. But his wife is like, but you could still have a kid, so have my slave Hagar, I think was her name. And religious people, please correct me if never hesitate to correct us on Autodidactica. We appreciate being corrected so that we go forth and sin no more, so to speak. Um, but yeah, so his wife let him have her slave. He knocked her up. Here comes Ishmael. But then God keeps his promise. Sarah, his wife, has a baby, Isaac. And then Sarah doesn't like Ishmael and Hagar. If I'm, I don't even know if that's her name. I
I'm
shouldn't
looking at
keep.
it. It's Hagar.
Okay, so it is. I got the name right.
Hagar.
Okay, good, good. Just making sure I'm not mixing up Bible stories. So she gets jealous and is like, "You need to send them away, boo. Those, your baby mama and her little slave baby have got to go." Abraham didn't like it, but he's whipped, so he banishes them. Go off into the desert. Sorry, sorry, baby mama and my firstborn son. Go off into the desert. But then God takes care of Ishmael, just like he takes care of Isaac. And Isaac grows up to continue to lead the more traditional Jewish faith, what evolved into the more traditional Jewish faith.
Yeah,
Ishmael, what he grew up to lead what is now the Islamic faith, the Muslims. They
right.
trace their heritage back to Ishmael.
And the
And
12
the
tribes.
yes. And so, the 12 tribes, yeah, it just um so there's been this rift because the Muslims call the same God, the God of Abraham, they call that Allah. The Jewish people called the same God of Abraham Yahweh. Same God. Slightly different ideas here and there. A lot of the same ideas. Um and they've been having wars over the Holy Land, who's entitled to that heritage, and they cannot be okay with both of them being entitled to that heritage. They can't share. And that is all religion, and that is how far back the schisms in the Abrahamic faiths go, all the way back to generation 2 of the whole thing, of the whole thousands of years long epic that we are still in today.
Yeah, and
Um,
because of that, I can't buy beer on Sundays.
right, true story.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks, Abraham.
thanks a lot,
That
Abraham.
basically that's just that comment is to illustrate how we view religion in America.
Uh-huh.
It's just
Right.
it's just something we kind of do on Sundays.
For some of us.
Yeah.
For some of us, it's your the air you breathe. It's just the way you live your life. You're really religious and into it. But
But
you
we're
know,
not like you look at it comparatively to the Middle East, the Holy Land, and then you
right.
look at Dallas.
Uh-huh.
It's like, they're over there 12 years old killing each other.
Right.
We're over here and I can't buy liquor on Sundays or beer before noon.
Right. Yeah,
And
that's how religion affects you versus how it affects them.
right,
Like, because
right.
we aren't in a theocracy, we aren't fighting wars about religion, at least not here. We fight wars about oil.
Not out in the open.
The God of America is money,
Yeah.
honestly. Um, so we fight wars for money. But
And
in the
power,
Middle East,
which
they fight wars for God and power.
right.
Um,
Power to have their God prevail.
right. But it's like, with these schisms, it's all the same God. The Jews and the Muslims worship the same God, at least on paper. I'm of the mind that no two people on earth worship the same God, even if they call that God by the same name. Like 10 people sitting on a pew in church all have a different idea who the God they're praying to is, like who Jesus is. If you're in a church, a Christian church, you
Personal
know,
Jesus.
say what? Oh yeah,
Personal
personal
Jesus.
Jesus. Yeah. Um, So like you pray to your personal Jesus, and maybe your personal Jesus hates everyone who gets an abortion. Maybe your personal Jesus is fine with it. Maybe your personal Jesus supports gay people and women having equal say in the church. Maybe your church says only men of the heterosexual persuasion can be in the ministry.
Maybe
Um,
your church says that if you are in the ministry, you aren't allowed to even have sex.
right. No premarital sex, or maybe the God you're praying to in the same church on the same pew next to the person whose God doesn't allow premarital sex. Your God understands it because he created sex for people to bond, not just to make babies. It's, so everyone has, like, I think everyone probably creates God in their own image to a degree. Everyone, whether you are aware of it or not, if you believe in God, the God you believe in is tailored to yourself. Because again, there's so many hundreds of denominations
Right. If
that
God is created if we're created in God's image, then my own image reflects God.
right, your image reflects God, but then your belief in God reflects you. Like if it's all true, it's a circle. Like, um, so if no two people worship the same God, um, that's again comes down to the whole, what do you do with a Christian theocracy? So like with there being hundreds of denominations, like I think um the denomination you choose, like, if you choose a denomination that's accepting of women as equals, that's accepting of the LGBTQ community as equals in the body of faith. Um, if you choose a denomination that is the opposite, if you choose Westboro Baptist Church, and sing homophobic hymns, like your religion does not say as much about God, like your belief in God and the church's teachings on God don't say as much about God as they say about you for having chosen that iteration of God when you have literally hundreds of options under the same name. You have hundreds of Jesuses to choose from. You choose a bigot. That says more about you than it says about God. You choose someone who's loving and accepting and forgiving. That says more about you than it says about God. Um, so to me, like that's one of those things about religion that just kind of irks because you can't dictate belief, in my opinion. And it's
Absolutely not.
yeah, and it's kind of toxic to try it.
Yeah, so there's too many denominations to claim as one that prevails over all the other ones in this this uh this state that we have here in the United States,
Right.
where and to tie in the opposite, the polar opposite of Christianity, there are a number of denominations of Satanism as well.
Right.
The
Right.
the two
Not
most prominent,
hundreds, I don't think. But
not
again,
hundreds.
no two.
Well, that's exactly right. Because my personal belief as a self-proclaimed Satanist is that all Satanists are self-proclaimed, and
Right.
thus there
Everyone's
is
worshiping a personal Satan, but then you have the fact that it's not. Well, I'll let you talk.
yeah, no,
I know where you're going.
by nature, saying hail Satan is to hail oneself,
Right. Right.
is you are your own Satan.
Mm-hmm.
Satan represents freedom, and
Mm-hmm.
so hail Satan means, I worship myself and my
Mm-hmm.
own pursuits and my own endeavors and ambitions, and none shall come before any of that. And now that
Right.
can be hindering, that can seem evil depending on the person.
Mm-hmm.
But just as you've been saying, so can somebody's personal Jesus be hateful and bigoted,
Right.
just as somebody's own personal Satan can
Can
lead
be,
them to be very vile and,
yeah, like,
a
or very
scoundrel.
accepting
Right.
too. Like just accepting of people's truths and selves. Like, it doesn't bother me, go for it, like, yeah, I think you're encouraged to not really be judgmental in uh satanic teachings.
Hmm.
Like, you draw boundaries for yourself but not for other people.
Right.
In Christianity, it's the opposite. You draw boundaries for other people as the church. But I've known a lot of people in the ministry, and I've known some very, very good, genuine people in the ministry. But I have to say, and I worked in the church for almost a decade. I've known way more people in the ministry who convinced me by their actions, by their behaviors, by the way they treated people, that they did not believe a word of the stuff they were preaching. For them, it was just you say that stuff from the pulpit to control the masses. You're controlling others, but it doesn't apply to you as the preacher, as the priest, whatever. It
Right.
doesn't apply to
Because you
you.
have that title, because you
Yeah.
cannot be holier than you are already. So whatever you do has to be holy.
Right. Then people will let you get away with it. And if they catch you, you can pull the, well, Jesus wants us to forgive people card, which you wouldn't
Hmm.
allow to be used on them. Like, I saw very little forgiveness from powerful people in the church, if any. I saw forgiveness when it suited their ends, when it was a
Which is
means
which
to
is which is
control
very
others.
satanic.
Yeah. Yeah. Ironically.
Yeah.
It's just that Satanism is more honest about things, in my opinion. They're
Oh
more
yeah.
upfront. But
I
like
mean, just
before,
just look at the laws and stuff.
right? And like, let's like here's something I want to do, because I want to get to like
Right.
the rules of the earth, and I always get, is it rules or laws? I think it's rules.
It's rules. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And like, I want to compare some things. Like, I mean, just so that we're not like, we can go back to kind of popcorn ideas about all this, but
For
I
sure.
want to do some really solid compare and contrast kind of stuff for a minute, or however many minutes. But like, I mean, at first, let's look at Christianity and just kind of brainstorm what are some really, truly, genuinely good things that have come or that continue to come from Christianity, either from just their presence in the world or from being a person who participates in that religion. Um, like, what comes to mind for you?
Firstly would be Alcoholics Anonymous.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that is. I
the
forgot that was
they do a
religiously
very
based.
good job. They help a lot of people through
Yeah.
a lot of tribulating times, and
Mm-hmm.
um, they help some more than others, but they are religion based,
Yeah.
and a lot of them, a lot of people that I know that have gone through that sort of counseling end up with a faith and end up
Right.
not drinking. You know,
Yeah.
they better themselves based on a faith-based program, and it helped them for better or worse. As much as I think it might be silly or something that these people need a God and Jesus to guide them through
Uh-huh.
the most hellish time of their and their families' lives.
Mm-hmm.
For better or worse, it helped them.
It helps. Yeah, for real. It gives them a direction. It gives them something to focus on. It gives them a higher power, and we can't even, because it's about a higher power.
Right.
Kind of, and I love the serenity prayer. Like, and if you
It
look at prayer as even just as meditation, the serenity prayer that they give you in Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, we're talking about this like we're both members. Neither one of us has gone to
no.
Alcoholics Anonymous. But I'm very aware of it from other people I know who have. And the Serenity Prayer, I think I mean, you can Google it if you don't know it. I think it's something like, God, give me the power to accept the things I cannot change, to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. Is
Yep.
that
Serenity to accept,
that
courage to
okay?
change, and wisdom to know.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I really love that.
It's a great prayer.
Yeah.
And but it also highlights, before it starts trying to split off again, it also highlights the reason why it doesn't work for everybody
Uh-huh.
is because
Well,
not
because it's
everybody can adhere to the faith.
right, exactly.
They don't
It can
feel
be
it.
off-putting to some people. Like if you're
Right.
not a person of faith, then in you're hit with here's a prayer to say, you know,
Right. God grant me. Who's
yeah,
God? You know,
right.
God is the reason I've been drinking this whole time. Like, and so,
um,
I mean, that's one of the most prominent examples to me of good that Christianity has done.
yeah, that's a
Um, uh,
really good one.
and then more than that, it's mostly like personal experiences
Okay. I mean,
because
that's
I grew up in the church
important.
as well,
Right.
and we did a lot of good shit. Like,
Hmm.
there's I could not even fathom how much food and necessities were donated towards the food banks and homeless
Hmm.
shelters and all kinds of stuff that we did together and coordinated, funded, and
Yes.
organized
Yeah,
in order
getting all those
to,
gifts for children at Christmas, like poor
yes, the
children. Just
toy
gosh, yes.
drives, yeah, just all those things that are ultimately altruistic
Yes.
and humanitarian
Hmm.
efforts.
Hmm.
They are highly organized. And Boy Scouts is
Yes.
is
Right.
faith based, and
Yeah.
that, yes, there are issues revolving
Right.
around Boy Scouts
Well,
from an organizational
yeah, I
standpoint.
was going to say any organization is going
Has
to have
dark spots.
right, right.
The Vatican said that they would
And we'll
face face a child molestation head on instead of their usual
right,
approach of
usual
face
just
down, ass up.
right,
And
let's stay on the positive for now. We'll get to
yeah,
the negative. We'll get
yeah,
to that.
right. But yes, so Boy Scouts of America, they do good work. It
Yeah.
is a good organization,
Hmm.
because busy minds, stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
Is sort of the thing that happens amongst adolescent boys. You take
Hmm.
kids that don't have the best parent base, maybe not the best environment to grow up in, and you give them something to do, something to see. You take them places,
Yeah.
and they learn things, but it is faith based.
Hmm.
There is I held the position several times in my Boy Scout troop of chaplain,
Oh,
where
right.
your job is to, you go camping once a month, at least in my troop,
Hmm.
and we would, every Sunday, it would be Saturdays and Sundays, and every Sunday you would lead a like a prayer. Nobody's in church, so everybody's got to go to church at the campsite, and the
Yeah.
chaplain's job was to put together a small sermon.
Hmm.
And it's usually short and sweet, very very short and sweet,
Right.
especially depending on the weather. If it's freezing cold outside
Yeah.
and we all just want to go home, but
Hmm.
um yeah, it's faith based, and
Yeah.
plenty of Eagle Scout projects, which are one of the things required to become an Eagle Scout, is you have to put together an Eagle Scout project.
Hmm.
They're done in conjunction with a church.
Yeah.
Hell, almost every Boy Scout troop I know, their meeting place was a church.
Right. Yeah. I think that's common. I don't know if there's any Boy Scout troops that don't meet in a church, honestly, but every church I'd ever been a part of had a troop.
Some larger troops have purchased land and
Uh-huh.
have
Oh, okay.
dedicated like homesteads where they meet and meeting places.
Yeah. Well,
And I always thought that was really cool. But yeah,
yeah.
my Boy Scout troop met in a church,
Yeah.
and almost every other one I know met in a church, and almost every
Yeah.
church that I know was a meeting place for
Yeah.
a Boy Scout troop or
Right.
another.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Every church I'm aware of had a troop. But, I mean, Cub Scouts are like preschool for Boy Scouts. and I was in a Cub Scout den. We met at my house. So I guess
Yeah,
they don't all meet at a church, but
and
a
that was
whole lot of them do.
mine did. We did revolving. We would meet at the church once a month,
Uh-huh.
the church, and then we would rotate to other parents' households,
Hmm.
and that was to um, do bonding things and get the parents more
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, Boy Scouts, as Christian based as it is, I knew plenty of Jewish
Hmm.
Boy Scout troops, entirely Jewish Boy Scout troops. They were
Yeah.
accepting Muslim Boy Scout troops. I knew one of
Uh-huh.
those.
Well,
And
because I think Boy Scouts, it started as a Christian thing, but I think it's kind of like Freemasonry, where you aren't required to be of a particular faith, but you must believe in a higher power. You must believe in some some version, some form of God in
and
order
that's how
to.
that restrictive law is framed here in Texas and the other
Uh-huh.
13 states where it is illegal to be an
Uh-huh.
atheist. Is
Right.
the
And a
main thing is,
politician.
yeah, you can't hold public office without professing belief in a higher power,
Uh-huh.
be that Judaism, Muslim, Christian, or
Right.
otherwise.
Right.
And so yeah, as far as good things that Christianity has, as far as I know, tons of just humanitarian effort
Oh yeah. Yeah,
across the
so
board,
much.
individually organized mostly,
Right.
because it varies from sect to sect
Yeah,
on
and
how
within
much
a
they
sect
actually do
from
it.
church to church. Um,
Exactly.
because not every church in a particular denomination do all the same things the same ways. That's why there are different churches other than just geographic, everything's spread out. But
Right. And so, like, one that is, to the listeners maybe painfully absent right now is like the Salvation Army
oh,
and the
right.
Red Cross.
Yeah.
The Salvation Army especially
Uh-huh.
are Christian based, and they have been caught red-handed, you
Right.
know, avoiding transgender youth,
Right.
avoiding gay youth,
Right.
and
They have
when
some
in their
bigoted policies.
right in their they have several caveats in
Hmm.
their humanitarian efforts.
Right. And that, yeah, I mean, we can go more into that when we get to the bad. Um, for sure, because yeah, like is there are some humanitarian, lots of, like Habitat for Humanity.
Absolutely,
We
I
did
do a
some
lot
of
of work
that.
for
We
them
did, yeah, yeah, because you
in
do,
my job right now, land
yeah.
surveying. I do a lot of Habitat for Humanity, and guess what? We
Hmm.
give them a discount too.
Uh-huh. And
They,
it's
they, they
worth, like, I think they're worthy of that
oh, absolutely. We
because,
do a ton of work for them,
hmm,
and they're good clients, and you
yeah.
know, I got nothing against it.
Hmm. Yeah, me neither. I mean, you and I both did stuff for for Humanity
Mm-hmm.
with our church
Yep.
that we were members of. Um, and that helps, shut-ins, like people who are old, can't fix things around their house is in terrible shape. And a group goes in, does some construction work. They have some experts on hand to make sure everybody's doing everything right. And things that these people couldn't afford to do that need to be done, get done.
In a
And
day, 30
in
people
a
show up and
day,
get it done
yeah.
in a day.
Hmm.
What would take a single contractor a week or two to do gets done in a day. And yeah, maybe it's not all up to contractor
Yeah,
par,
it's not going to be the
but
best work, but it's,
but it is an absolute showing of human
mhm,
camaraderie
yeah, yeah.
and humanitarian effort.
And like another thing, like just historically, I think something that's been good for the world that has enriched the human experience, that Christianity has played a major part in, is the arts. Um, just over the centuries, like Christianity, like there are so many gorgeous works of art. So many artists thrived doing religious paintings and sculptures, like the statue of David, the Sistine Chapel. I mean, cathedrals, these big old cathedrals that are just works of art in themselves.
Right, architecturally.
Yeah, just, I mean, Christianity pushed all of that forward at one point.
They push
Um,
science forward.
they did.
Yeah, because
That's
it, it
true.
it challenges the mind.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I know the sun comes up every day, but why does it come up every day?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Remember how big of a deal it was for everybody to find out that the sun doesn't revolve around the earth, but it's the other way around. And
Uh-huh.
it's science. Yeah, science was absolutely pushed forward by contradicting doctrine,
Right.
by presenting with one idea and then having higher minds determine that that is not the proper
Right, because they're
idea.
trying to figure out how it all works. They're trying to find the fingerprints of God. Because yeah,
Right.
if you look at a lot of the scientific disciplines, like if you look at um, astronomy, if you look at archaeology, if you look at anything where they're trying to figure out how the world works, most of these, like the Renaissance scientists, most of them were men of faith. They believed wholeheartedly in God, and they
Right.
were looking for answers, and they were driven to look for those answers by their faith. True story, because it gives you somewhere to start,
Right. It's
with
just it's
your
just like the first dinosaur bones were probably found trying to find Noah's Ark.
they were. No,
Like,
that's exactly archaeology. The birth of archaeology was people in the 19th, I want to say the 19th century. Maybe there was a little, it was nothing like modern archaeology in the 18th century if they found dinosaur bones or something. But
right.
19th century for sure, I think, is when
They were holy
archaeology
beasts.
as we know it really started to take shape. And it was people trying to prove the Bible.
Right.
And even today, a lot of the core timelines of antiquity that they've put together, they really started by doing timelines of Bible stories
Right.
and trying to stick to that and make everything work and everything fit. So yeah, I mean, that's something you don't hear often, but it's true. That's a great point. Christianity fueled the sciences that they
Right.
are so opposed with in some areas today and throughout history, but they're the ones who inspired it, all this discovery. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is there anything else you can think of? Just I mean, there's so much. I wouldn't there's so much we're not saying that
Yeah.
good
Good
things.
wise.
Good.
Yeah.
And even
Of Christianity.
yeah, even just having a community of faith. Take away faith, you've got a community. Like
Youth groups.
youth groups.
Youth groups changed my world.
Mine too. When I was a
Right.
teenager, don't know how I would have become an adult without the youth group that I was a member of.
I'd say about 60% of the people that I was in youth group with are still good friends now.
Yeah, yeah.
10 years later,
Mm-hmm.
10 plus years later, I still am on good terms and even see a lot
Yeah,
of them
yeah.
frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, and then I know people today that don't have any friends. They
Right.
don't have anybody that they
Mm-hmm.
have known for 10 plus years and are still interacting with on, a regular basis. Whereas youth
Right.
group gave me a plethora of people.
Right. Yeah.
And
Um,
yeah, just the whole, and then again, back to the, keeping kids off the streets.
uh-huh.
It's another way to do it. It's another
Mm-hmm.
thing to go to for a kid to do on
Right.
a weekly basis that
Mm-hmm.
gives them an escape from whatever hellish reality they face outside of those
Right.
four walls.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean that's what it was for me. Like when I was a teenager and my family was falling apart. My parents were going through a divorce, but I had this refuge. I had this sanctuary, so to speak, in the youth group that I was a member of, which incidentally is the youth group you were a member of later on when I was
Mm-hmm.
the youth minister of all crazy things. But, I mean, in that, it's like I didn't just get some deeply devoted friendships out of that, out of both times. Like being a youth minister, that's how you and I became such good friends, is through that experience that we shared together for all those years. And it gives you skills, like, just like Boy Scouts gives you skills. My experience in youth group, your experience in youth group, like we had share groups, which kind of give you all these like counseling skills, peer counseling and conflict resolution, and just processing your feelings in a healthy manner kind of things. And oh, youth council, freaking youth annual conference, like the Legends of Nod book 6 hasn't come out yet, but youth annual conference, like the Nod version of that is in there. And I think y'all would get such a kick out of that chapter because I mean it teaches you, I mean it's tedious and crazy, but the legislative process, I
Yeah,
learned politics growing up in the Methodist church. And that has
absolutely.
served me my whole life, being able to play that game well, like deftly, to be able to work with people and compromise, and you get support for something you want to do, like rally the votes ahead of the vote, that kind of thing. Like just the skills that I got from the
Yeah,
church.
we stopped selling Hershey's chocolate
Right, right.
thanks to a legislation
Right,
where
at
we were
youth
going to
annual conference.
no longer sell non-fair trade chocolate
Right.
and candies and products at
Hmm.
events because it's all slave labor.
Right, it is.
And
And
we were, as a capitalistic society, going to no longer give them our dollars.
yeah, yeah, made an ethical choice. And that's one of the things, because you're teenagers. Like the church, at least the Methodist church at the time, empowered teenagers. It gave you a place to be a leader, to develop leadership skills, to test yourself, to test your mettle.
Yeah,
Go to youth annual conference and see if you can change a little corner of the world.
yeah.
Like you have that opportunity, you have that voice. Teenagers were allowed
It
to go
starts with
to
you,
grown-up annual conference too. Like we had a
and
delegation.
that was hell. But
But it was an experience that I think is really positive. Like even, like how it's healthy, I think, for young people to see how stupid old people can be. Sometimes it's like you're gonna grow up, and grown-ups aren't all grown-ups. They're not all mature. There are some big babies with gray hair who, that's what you learn when you're learning politics. You learn about adults. You learn about your place, like that, what you can become, good or bad. You get to see the good and the bad. And I just think those skills are invaluable. And I wouldn't have any of them without my church, my youth minister, that kind
yeah,
of thing,
so
that
so my
background.
so exactly, my personal experience with Christianity was quite a positive one.
Hmm.
But in the age of social media, and that's another topic for another time,
Right.
um, I have seen many more negative experiences with Christianity and churches in general, organized Christianity, than
Right.
I have seen positive.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. And um, if you'll indulge me,
If
um,
I will indulge you, I will.
all right. So what I would like to do is let's follow the stereotypes first. Like let's do good things from church, bad things from Satan, or good things from Christianity, bad things from Satanism, and then let's go bad things from church, good things from Satanism. Just the opposite
Yeah,
of the expectation. The
yeah,
expectation
absolutely.
is Christianity good, Satanism bad. So let's look at Satanism bad. Unless you have something else you'd like to say about Christianity good.
No,
I mean,
no.
there's a lot we haven't, like we could go on and on, but
Just a blanket statement for me would just be humanitarian effort.
yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, okay, so Satanism, evil. Like, let's talk
Evil.
about evil, bad things done by Satanism. Like, and we're like, for the purposes of this, like, I think we can get into the nuances later about the differences between theistic and non-theistic Satanism. For the purposes of this little exercise, let's just do lump them all together. But
Right.
you know,
Because I'm a bigoted Christian and don't know.
right,
And
right,
you know, that's my character right now.
hmm
And and but
right,
and so I don't have a lot to say because I don't know anything about Satanism
uh-huh.
as a Christian. I don't know
Well,
anything about Satanism other than that they're devil worshippers.
right,
And so like in your little exercise, that's almost all I can say is that Satan is the boogeyman.
right,
And
okay,
Satan is the absolute antithesis to what I believe in. So therefore, what I
mhm,
would believe in is everything that is good on this planet, and so
mhm.
what a Satanist would believe in is everything that's evil.
Right, everything that's
Every
evil,
sin,
like,
right? Every sin that I determine is a sin, Satanists indulge in,
right. And
and
if God is love, this then Satan is hate. It's
right.
but that yeah, that's a Christian
Whereas God says don't commit adultery, Satan
perspective.
says screw everything that you see, and
Right.
you know
Right. Okay,
and
so
hate your neighbor.
hmm. And I mean that's your Christian perspective on it. Right?
Right.
Like a stereotypical thing. So like, like um actual
Actual Satan
actual
teachings,
evil perpetuated by Satanism, devil worship. Like if you get into the theistic Satanists, if you get into those
which is like
weird
1% of
little
all.
cults, well, yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's kind of like the same as non-denominational Christian churches, where
Yeah,
there's no uniformity. It's whoever the charismatic leader is, and they're just using Jesus or Satan. In this case, it's you're using the devil to manipulate people,
right,
sacrificing animals, whatever, that
right.
kind of thing. Like, no, it's not the mainstream Satanism, but it is an evil that exists under the name of Satanism. That you believe in a literal devil, a Satan, a fallen angel.
So thus you also believe in God,
Right. So
and
you
you
also
believe
believe in God, but you choose to worship the devil. And, okay, so like something I've noticed about like when I was in high school, the Satanists were theistic Satanists. They were, it's kind of the opposite. It actually is the opposite of our youth group experiences, in that it's not really giving you skills, that kind of Satanism. It's isolating you more. It's pulling you away from society. It draws in incels and sort of reinforces their incelness, which is a new autodidactic word we just made up here. So
incelness. Yeah,
incelness, yeah. Um, it it teaches you to rely on magic, on spirits and curses and spells and that kind of thing. The theistic Satanism. Um, it's teaches you revenge. It perpetuates cycles of vengeance because a cycle of vengeance never ends until someone turns the other cheek, which is not taught by theistic Satanism. And I mean, what else? It's well, I mean, it's controlling. Like I think any religion is kind of, it's got that aspect of controlling. But when you're talking about like the theistic Satanists, it's more each little coven or cell is more like it's a cult. It's
it's a
an
cult.
occult cult.
Right,
And so it's all about, what the leader wants to do. And it's usually something messed up. It's not, hey, let's go do something with Habitat for Humanity. It's
right.
find a black cat and slice it open, and on Halloween, that kind of, but yeah, we're talking the stereotypes. So,
Right.
and some of those, it's like those may not be the most mainstream things. Any Satanist listening to this, I don't want you to become enraged by our take. We're not finished with y'all.
I guarantee
It's
you there's
like,
not one theistic Satanist listening to this.
I probably not, but you don't know. Like, at
Yeah,
some,
I would love to be informed about your particulars on
oh
theistic
yeah,
Satanism because there's no organization.
right. I would
There's
love to know.
I think the only organized sect of theistic Satanism here in the United States is something called the Temple of the Nines,
Uh-huh.
and they are a theistic satanic group
Yeah.
that I haven't studied too much into because my views on theism in general,
Right. Well,
theistic
same.
is is pretty dim to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
We're on the same page of that book. But
because the two most popular forms of Satanism here in the United States are under the guidance of LaVey and the Church of Satan,
right.
or the guidance of, I forget his name, but the opposing denomination, which is the Satanic Temple,
Mm-hmm.
and those are both non-theistic satanic organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah,
Non-theistic. I
and
mean, mainstream Satanism is not theistic.
they're super atheists.
Yeah,
Is is
exactly.
is how
Most of
they
them are
sort of
atheists
perpetuate
or
themselves.
agnostics. They're, yeah.
Yeah, atheists on steroids
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
atheists with doctrine.
But I mean, yeah, so but for the
And so yeah,
purposes of this, can we think of anything else terrible and bad that Satanism has perpetuated? And I'm like, there's a point coming to me from all of this.
spiteful. Yeah,
Spiteful,
yeah,
yeah,
just
vengeance, like,
spitefulness.
mhm,
Yeah, just
pettiness is taught.
pettiness. Yes, go against the grain at all costs.
Right,
And
right. Be a
that's as far as
nonconformist,
like
even if
being
it
nonconformist to a fault.
to a fault. That's, yeah,
And
what I was trying to get at. Because I don't think nonconformity is bad in itself at all. I think it's great, but to be yourself, be true to yourself. But there's that extreme version of that. Incels, like I said,
right,
just
looking for
blame
some
everybody
sense of
else.
individuality. Yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah, be different. And a lot of times that leads to the isolationism and the, you know, I don't know if any school shootings
lack
can
of
trace
bonding.
back to Satanism, but um
Doubtful.
yeah, I can't think of any. But I mean, though that's a topic for another time altogether. But just school shootings and all that. But yeah, so like I'm trying to think of some other terrible things, because I mean there's a lot of stuff that's just not true that's said about even theistic Satanists. And I'm not trying to diminish theistic Satanists by saying even theistic Satanists. Um, I'm just saying, they have a lot more leeway to do things that, they're not organized. So, um, but there's a lot of things that just aren't true. Like, a lot of them aren't out there sacrificing cats, but it does come with that. That could be considered a bad thing. That if you um, claim the name of Satanist, there's an expectation that goes with that. There's there's a stereotype, a stigma that if, oh, you're the devil worshiper boy, therefore you eat babies, kind of thing. Like, it hurts you. Whereas like being in a Christian church in our country the way it is gives you an advantage in a lot of social and political settings. Saying you are a Satanist does the opposite. It hurts you socially on the larger scale. It hurts you politically. Try to run for president and say Hail Satan at the end of your speech. I mean, yeah, it hurts you to be a Satanist. And that's not even the doing of Satanism itself, but that does come with it. It comes with the label. Um,
Yeah, I'd like to try it. You'd certainly make headlines.
what, running for president? Yeah,
And
definitely.
saying "Hail Satan" at the end of it.
Yup, yup.
You'd be on Fox News 24/7.
Yeah, as their new savior, probably.
Yeah, right.
This is what Jesus Christ was all about.
The whole
Hail
time.
Satan. Like that's kind of what they do. They're like evil in the name of good. What? War in the name of the God of peace. Hatred in the name of the God of forgiveness. Yeah, but all right, so we're getting back. I mean, I don't think we can. I'm not coming up with as many evil things of Satanism as I came up with good things of Christianity off the top of my head.
Right.
I feel like I'm kind of reaching at this point.
Because yeah, there's, for one thing, I mean, you can look at it as a sheer numbers thing. There's
Yeah,
far less
yeah,
accounts of Satanism in
because there are
general
far fewer Satanists. Yes,
because there are far fewer Satanists. So they have much less organizing power to do evil, and we don't hear about it. That
right,
doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
right. But no war
But
has
then
ever
if
been
we,
fought for Satan
right,
ever that I'm aware
for
of.
Satan, there have
Yeah.
been wars fought against Satan, aka, trying to ban gay marriage in the United States. That's a
Oh,
fight against
right. Yeah,
Satan
they think of that
as some.
as, oh, yeah.
So now we're getting into
Yeah,
the
so let's
flip
do it.
side.
Let's go to, yeah.
Yeah. So we did the good things of Christianity versus the evils of Satanism,
Uh-huh.
which are few and far between accounted things.
Right.
And then now we have the evils of, or should we do the good of Satanism versus the evils of Christianity first? Should we
Yeah,
keep it
that's what I
good,
want to do. Like,
good, bad?
we could do that. Let's go for that. Let's good things about Satanism then.
Yeah.
That's what you're
So
saying. Yeah.
yeah. So for one thing, I mentioned earlier that I I have self-proclaimed as a Satanist before, and it
Right.
should be mentioned, you know, for all of those that don't know, that Satanism at its core is a philosophy and not necessarily a religion.
Right. Which is kind of how I look at
Theistic
all
Satanism,
religions. Oh, but go on.
right? Theistic Satanism, sure, you can look at that as a religion, but LaVeyan Satanism and the Satanism taught by the Satanic Temple, those are
Right.
both non-theistic satanic sets of ideals. They're ideologues, and so that is the ones that
Yeah.
I adhere to. And I almost think that to be a proper Satanist, you have to be self-proclaimed and non-denominational.
Right. It's
And
like being a member of a church, a satanic church, is kind of counter to the teachings of Satanism, ironically.
exactly, and that's what I learned from the teachings of Satanism is that both there's beef between the two satanic regimes, between the Church of Satan and the Satanic Temple. Satanic Temple says that the Church of Satan is non-active and antique, and the Church of Satan discounts the Satanic Temple as being as riding their coattails.
Right.
But see, both of them adhere to the Satanic teaching of just wanting to increase their following. Both Satanic teachings will teach you not to follow where it does not benefit.
Yes.
And it's because it's all about the individual. Satanism is a philosophy that idolizes you as an individual.
Yeah.
And teaches you to basically have some damn standards for yourself.
Right.
And don't be a sheep. Whereas both temples, both sects desperately need there to be sheep.
Right. In order to exist.
Yes.
In order for their teachings to be carried on.
That's why I always find it so humorous when everybody's so proud of their little card that they got for membership of one or the other temples. And I'm just like, you didn't learn a thing.
Right.
and it's always interesting to see that and to see that sort of perspective. But so as far as good things that come from Satanism, absolutely the Satanic Temple has done way more. The Satanic Temple is essentially if there's an alt right, then the Satanic Temple would be the alt left.
Right. If there is an alt left, like, yeah, that would be
right.
it. Because it is a political, like, it's
They are
largely
far
political
more
what they
politically
do.
active.
And a
Yes,
lot
you
of
go to the
the,
Satanic Temple's website right now, and the first thing on their homepage is TST demands Texas recognize religious right to perform abortion post Roe.
Mhm.
That's their first thing. They're literally fighting for women's rights
Right. That's
right
what
now.
they do. And a lot of the things they do are satirical in order to draw attention to the absurdity of certain
Oh yeah,
laws.
billboards and all kinds of stuff. You'll see
Yeah,
them. And
statues of Baphomet that they
oh
donate to
yes,
courthouses that put the Ten Commandments up.
yes, the
Like,
Oklahoma state government wanted to place the Ten Commandments on state grounds, a
uh-huh.
statue of them, and TST, the Satanic Temple, immediately called them out and then demanded that if you're going to put a statue of the Ten Commandments on Capitol grounds, then you need to
Mhm.
place a statue of Baphomet on Capitol grounds as well.
Right.
And guess what? They did neither. There is neither a statue
Right.
of the Ten Commandments, nor is there a statue of Baphomet. However, the statue of Baphomet was created and is in
Yeah.
Oklahoma, and you can
Yeah.
sit in Baphomet's lap and get your
Yeah,
picture
it
taken.
exists. Truth.
Yeah,
That would be a great photo op. But
yeah, absolutely. And so, yes, the Satanic Temple is very involved in left-wing liberal politics and
right.
protecting individual rights.
Right. Defending the defenseless. They're standing
Exactly.
up for people and they're speaking out. They're
They're
taking
standing in the
action pro-social values from the Church of Satan, like the
right.
Satanic
They have
Temple.
established themselves as a religion
Uh-huh.
to fight religion.
Right.
They're doing what every, you know, politically active atheist wants to do, which is, hey, we should just start our own religion and make all the stuff we believe in part of our religion.
Right.
Well, that's what the
Right.
Satanic
All
Temple
of
is
your
doing.
values. It's still transmitting values, just like any religion does. But theirs doesn't include brainwashing of any sort. Like you have to believe in this deity or said deity will annihilate you. You know, they don't do that. And I think that's good. They
Right.
they teach ethics and values without tying it to faith in a particular dogmatic divinity. And I
Right. They
think
were holding
that's great. It's secular,
it's very
but a
they were
lot of
holding like after school programs. TST
right.
was doing after school programs in Oklahoma
Uh-huh.
where they were teaching science classes, making science fun, like doing stuff about like the weather cycle and
Yeah.
for like children in like elementary school. And oh
Right.
my God, could you imagine how much uproar there was?
I'm sure like people just imagining their children coming home. Oh, that's a this kind of cloud. Hail Satan. Like
Right,
like
exactly.
that's but that's not because they're not brainwashing. They're just
No, it was
educating.
literally a science class sponsored by the TST.
Uh-huh.
Paid for by the TST. There was snacks available that weren't, the decapitated heads of goats. They were freaking
Right.
goldfish.
Right.
And
Crackers, goldfish crackers. Right, not actual
the
goldfish.
teachers were right, yeah. The teachers were paid teachers employed at the school where the after school program was being held, paid for by the TST.
Yeah.
But yet it got canceled because the PTA was not having it.
Right. Right. Because they're too afraid of the stereotype and the stigma.
They would rather
And
have after school Bible study.
right. Well, because they're also afraid of the devil. They
Right.
can't, a lot of people, I would say, I would speculate, because I don't know the numbers, but I would speculate that most people don't realize that organized Satanism is
Is
not
satirical.
faith based. Yeah, it's a philosophy, it is values, but it's yeah, it's not believe in the devil. You don't have to believe in the devil. In fact, most of them think you're stupid if you do.
Right.
So they're not teaching your children to worship the devil. They're teaching your children to be free thinkers. And the free thinking part of Satanism is, I think, very cool. I think but the standing up and speaking out, like that's one of my personal values that I think they embody very well. Just more than anything, just their satirical political actions that actually, because that's the thing about the Ten Commandments versus Baphomet. It's that they know that that's an unwinnable case, and that if they do go to the Supreme Court with it, it is absolutely spelled out in the Constitution. You can't you can't show favoritism to one religion over another. So if
Right,
they
which is
put the
why
Ten
neither of the
Commandments up,
statues.
they would have to put Baphomet. Exactly. So they're like, you know what? We're just not going to do either one. But
Yep.
it kept the Ten Commandments from being put up. That was a win for Satanism, because and for secularism in general, just for not living in a theocracy, that was a win.
Right, because it made people realize that favoritism to one means you have to be fair to all.
Right, exactly. And I'm totally in favor of learning about the Christian traditions and faith and history in public
Right,
schools, but as
it's just
long as
like
we learn
people.
about all the other religions too.
Right, you can't have a
You
Bible
can't
in the
opt
school
out.
library if you're not going to have the Quran in there too.
Exactly. Exactly.
And but you can't have the Quran in there because 9/11.
Right, because yeah, they're scared of Muslims too. But I mean, we're getting off topic about the good
Right,
of Satanism, the
and
good
so
things about the devil.
the good thing is about the devil, so the TST is the easiest to point to in terms of everything a politically active atheist wants there to be active movement behind is
Yeah,
pretty much what the TST is doing.
right. Gay rights,
And,
women's rights,
and that's pretty
religious
much
freedom,
religious
freedom
freedom,
from religion.
freedom from religion. They are actively doing it in an organization that is raising money and
Mhm,
battling those things we all hate
mhm.
beyond our votes, because our votes, they count as much as they do,
Right,
and until your governor is elected for the third time in a row.
right. Yeah.
Uh, and now you're stuck with them for the next 4 years. Well, the
Yeah.
TST is fighting against that.
Mhm.
And so if you want to pay $20 and get your little TST donated card, or your little TST membership card, your money is going towards
Right. You're donating.
organized combat.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so you get to flash around your little organization card that
Right.
says you're a card carrying Satanist, but you know at the end of the day, uh, it just doesn't. Satanism can't do as much good as Christianity could do.
Because it's not as big.
It's not as big, and it's
Yeah.
feared, and uh,
Yeah.
you know. So as far as the Church of Satan, they are fairly inactive.
Yeah.
They're an exclusionary group of status holders,
Uh-huh.
is what they are. That pay membership. There are masses that you can attend in California
Right.
where their church is based,
Yeah.
but it is very statusy.
Uh-huh.
Um, big names are members of the Church of Satan, um,
Mhm.
and they'll go to these things. It's a celebrity event,
Yeah.
and that's exactly how LaVey wanted it. He wanted a group of sheep to pay him homage
Yeah.
because that's Satanism at its finest.
Mhm.
However, there is a satanic clothing brand
Yeah. Yeah.
that you have seen in many of our videos. If you watch our YouTube videos of me
Right.
wearing, Blackcraft Cult is
Uh-huh.
very satanic, and they raise so much money for charities.
Uh-huh.
I bought a charity T-shirt that goes um I can't remember the name of the charity, but it's like a hope for a day.
Mm-hmm.
Hope for a Day, and it's a anti-suicide advocacy group and charity fund.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought a T-shirt, and if I remember correctly, they ended up donating like all the sales from those T-shirts, and it amounted to like $25,000.
Yeah.
And that's no small amount.
No, it's not.
I'm sure Gucci could donate more,
Right.
but for a small, California-based satanic clothing company to donate 25 grand
Yeah.
to a charity, that's no small fee. They
No,
have a
that's
shirt that says that all of the proceeds still to this day go towards a charity, and it's fuck the Westboro Baptist Church.
right.
Yeah, that's literally what the shirt
Which is
says.
a very fair statement given some of these statements that come out of the Westboro Baptist Church. Like you can't say that's too vulgar or
Yeah,
disrespectful
what's
of
the
another
what
person's religion, because vulgarity and disrespect are what the Westboro Baptist Church are all about. But they're
what's their
standing up to
URL?
Westboro.
Yeah, wasn't it
It's
like
godhatesfags.com.
.com? Yeah,
At least it
that's what
used to. Is it still?
that's what it still is. Yeah.
Do they still have a? Well, we're just bleeding into what's evil of Christianity, but
Right, sure. But
because it used to
yeah,
have a
so
count of how many days Matthew Shepard, the gay teenager who was crucified on a fence by bigots, has been in hell. Like they had a
yeah, they
countdown on their
are
website.
the
Or
worst people.
they are horrible.
But yeah, no, the let's see, whenever hurricane what was that last really bad hurricane here in
Can't
Texas?
remember the name of it. I keep wanting to say Katrina. Was it?
Rita,
It was because that was longer ago. Maybe it was
Ivan,
Rita. I don't know. Bad hurricane though.
bad hurricane a couple years back, 3 or 4 years ago, and
Yeah.
that guy down there with the mega church in Houston,
Oh, that mother
Joel Osteen.
Holstein. Ugh.
Joel Osteen wouldn't open his mega church doors for displaced people to take refuge from the
Yeah.
hurricane.
Yeah.
And Westboro or no Black Crap Cult made a shirt said "fuck Joel Osteen,"
Uh-huh.
and in 3 days generated like $25,000 for like hurricane relief,
Right.
donated to the Red Cross
Right.
to fight against to relieve the people down there.
Yeah, where the
And it's
people
just
you
like,
expect to be your heroes in that story drop the ball on purpose. They caught the ball, picked it up, and you know, threw it through the goalposts.
mm-hmm.
It's good. Like
And
they're heroic in that way.
right, so they have no church affiliation per se, but
Right.
they are a satanic clothing company.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so we'll count that
very
because we're
very
lumping it
very,
all together.
very much borrow um, from the symbolism of Satanism
Yeah.
and the ideology of believe in yourself. That's their slogan
Mm-hmm.
is Hail Satan, believe in yourself, because that is what Hail Satan means
Right.
in Levian Satanism.
Right, exactly. Because you are Satan. You're your own Satan. You're your own higher power. You're the master of your own destiny, is
The
what
center
is
of your
pretty much.
universe.
Yes, yes. And I mean, that's an empowering philosophy. It's an empowering teaching.
And
Uh,
so as far as I've seen, the good that Satanism has done, organized Satanism, far outweighs any small little rural sect of cults that have maybe sacrificed a couple of goats
right.
for Satan and done
Mm,
nothing else to, benefit overarching society.
yeah.
Organized Satanism is organized funds for charities,
Yeah.
fighting against irrational legislation by
Right.
right-wing Congress lawmakers,
Mm-hmm.
and So they have done just as much, they have put as much effort into doing good as Christianity has.
Right. Right. Yeah, they do a lot of good. That's kind of their whole purpose. They're doing what, at least by their philosophy, they consider good. And honestly, if you really look at those teachings, I think most people who consider themselves ethical would have to say they agreed with a lot of the teachings of organized Satanism, like mainstream Satanism. Um, so that's
Yeah, so the
good.
yeah, so the bads of Christianity
Right. Evils of
in
Christianity. And again, it's
in contrast.
yeah, and it's bigger. So again, like I think we'll come up with way more evils of the church because they have more power to do evil, just like they have
Right,
more power to do good. So it's going
right.
to be easier for us to like we're trying
With
to
great power
be
comes great responsibility.
yeah, we're trying to be balanced here, but the they aren't balanced. The church can do more.
Right.
So just so anyone listening thinks we're picking on the
Proportionally.
church, like it's the church can do more. So we can think of more examples. Like, what were you about to say?
I was just saying proportionally. It
Mhm.
makes sense. The church can do more
Yeah,
and they do more.
yeah.
But proportionally speaking, as far as how much good the Satanists do versus how much evil they actually do,
Oh, I
proportionally
see what you're
speaking,
saying.
how much good Christianity does versus how much
Versus how much evil
bad
they
they
do.
do,
So instead of comparing
then
Christianity to Satanism, we're comparing Christianity to itself. Is kind of what you're
right,
saying. Like
essentially.
how much and Satanism to itself, the good and the bad. And that's more
Exactly.
fair. It's more fair that way. Like, because yeah, I would say Satanism does far more good than it does evil,
Right.
personally.
But
And
but
oh
then
yeah, I guess
Christianity
let's get into the dark
barely,
side.
where do you even begin?
Like
We've
wars.
already
Let's
touched
begin
on it several
wars.
times.
Yeah.
Wars. Yeah, exactly.
Christians kill people. The
Wars have been
can
fought, blood has been spilled,
yeah, history has been
not just
erased.
historically, but every day.
Yeah. 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 I mean the conquistadors who
Yep.
wiped out so much of the history of the Americas pre-Columbus because they
Right.
wanted it
Basically
wasn't
all of it.
Christian. It was pagan. It was yeah, all of it. We don't know um much about those people. Like it's and that was done in the name of Christianity, the Spanish Inquisition, the as much as they lifted up science or inspired science, they've fought tooth and nail against science over the years, like evolution, the discovery that the Earth orbited the sun and not the other way around. It was people died over these things. They've burned books. Um,
People,
just yeah, burned people. Let's talk about witches.
the Salem witch trials. Yeah.
Like a witch, and like I always thought this was an interesting Bible story where King Saul was out with his army and they're fighting a war, and the person who takes them in and tends their wounds and feeds their army is this witch, the witch of Endor is what she was called in the Bible. And like the Bible is always teaching, spare no witch to live kind of things. Like, and who was the person actually demonstrating what we would call Christian values? The witch of Endor was helping these people who were monsters in her eyes. Um, so Christianity is, burn witches, and they're mixed messages. The Bible is a big fat book of mixed messages. Um, and so that's damaging. Like it's like if I feel like Satanism is teaching a more coherent philosophy, and Christianity, it depends on what book you're reading, pretty much, as far as
Yep.
what values it's actually teaching you. It's yeah, it's inconsistent, and That's probably why. I mean, just the fact that it's so splintered, there are so many big denominations. Like every denomination is probably bigger than any organized satanic group,
Oh,
uh,
absolutely.
just on its own, not Christianity as a whole. But yeah, like they contradict themselves. They're very hypocritical in
Right.
general. In
So,
general, like they teach forgiveness, but they also teach condemning people left and right. Judge
right. He
not,
who is
lest ye
without
be
sin.
judged. Gay people are abominations. You know, it doesn't,
Yep.
yeah. He who is without
Cast the
sin,
first stone.
right. You know, like I know someone who I think, if you told them Jesus said, or if Jesus were to tell him, if he were in that crowd, let he is who without sin cast the first stone at the woman who they'd caught committing adultery, which was punishable by death by stoning. Jesus stopped these people. You're without sin, you cast the first stone. This guy I know, he would put his stone down with everyone else, but he would think Jesus wanted him to get a bigger rock. That's what he would do. Well, I'm gonna have to do it myself. Bam.
Right.
Like that's a lot of the attitude I've seen coming out of Christian churches, mostly the non-denominational ones.
Yeah. And then, so yeah, warring. Warring on ideals as well as just straight up purging of populations.
Yeah.
The Crusades
Uh-huh.
were a holy war fought
Right.
against the invaders of the Holy Land,
Mm-hmm.
and so blood has been spilled on Christian command,
Yup. So much
whereas
blood.
so much, comparatively speaking, at
And
least a few gallons more than Satanism is commanded.
right, right, for real. Like at least a few. But man, and genocide. I mean, war, genocide. Look what they did to the Native Americans. That was
Native Americans, the
largely,
Hindus,
yeah.
the Hindus of India.
Mm-hmm.
Britain conquered it
Mm-hmm.
and tried to turn it Christian.
Yeah.
Didn't really work out. It was too much money, but they still tried it.
Yeah. Yeah. And forced. I think that's what I was actually going for with Native Americans because I'm thinking about like Trail of Tears, Methodist
Forced
ministers
conversion.
walked with the Native Americans. Like, so that was a good thing, but like bad, yeah, the forced conversion. You
And plenty
cut your hair and
of
learn
them
about
chose
Jesus.
conversion.
Right,
Plenty of them chose conversion over
right.
extermination.
But it wasn't even genuine. Like the Spanish, like coming and forcing everyone to be Christians. It's it's not real if you're threatening their lives. And like missionaries that go to places where people are starving, they're doing good if they're working with these people, teaching them to be self-sufficient, feeding them. That's good. But the ones who go over there, find a starving village and build them a church, like, well, can we eat
Instead
it?
of a well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
instead of a well, instead of teaching them farming skills or whatever they actually need. That's just posing. That's just political posing. That's just, look how good we are. We built these poor people a church. Now they can pray for food, I guess. I mean, it's hypocrisy. It's not really helping people. It's tooting your own horn. There's a lot of that in Christianity. There's a lot of elitism. Like Christianity was used to defend slavery during the early days of the United States. They used Bible passages, be an obedient slave, that kind of thing. The Bible
Yeah.
is very pro slavery.
Yeah. Stripes and stars comprise my prison bars.
Mm,
Yeah, no,
what's that?
there's a song. There's a song called Native Blood from Silent Planet
Oh,
that
okay.
is all about the purging of Native Americans on American soil.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
Stripes and Stars comprise my prison bars, the cost of liberty. And yeah, they're marching them down to the reservation,
Right.
and that's the cost of their liberty is bow
Mhm.
down to the stripes and stars, so that way you get to live on this tiny strip of land that we give you.
Right.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah, and I mean forced Christianity was a big part of all of that. Like,
and the
and
missionaries are brainwashed too. They think they're saving them.
no, exactly. They
They think
think
they're
they're saving them.
right. It's eternal punishment if these
Hmm.
savages don't start
Right.
confessing.
Yeah, and
You
I
know,
mean, and that's another of the evils of the church, I think, is just teaching you to be afraid of your own shadow. It's like you'll never be good enough. We are like there were creeds we had to like, recite in church, if you recall. And I hated them. Like I wouldn't say some of the lines. I don't know if y'all ever noticed that I just kind of went silent during parts of some of those mantras we had to do, like, oh, we are dirt, we're not worthy of anything, we aren't worthy to lick the crap off of your feet, Jesus. I didn't say any of that because I didn't believe it. But that's taught. You're taught to hate yourself in a way
yeah,
and glorify
absolutely.
only God. Only God can be good,
Only
and only
God.
God can forgive you for what a piece of crap you are.
Take an objective look at the Ten Commandments, for Christ's sake.
I want to,
As I
like, I
say,
want to compare the Ten Commandments to the rules of the earth.
I've got them both up. So whenever you're
Sweet.
ready.
Same page.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, do we have anything else like evils of the church that we need to go into on
Well,
this
they're
little part?
so publicized. There's,
Right. Yeah, like
there's
you get the
touching little
child
boys.
molestation.
Yeah.
Yes.
And and mostly that's mostly attributed to Catholicism because
Well,
they don't
because
allow
they enable
preachers.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't allow priests to have wives, thus
Right. So they've
thus
got
repressing.
no sexual outlet that's
Right.
accepted. If they do have access to altar boys,
They absolutely have access to altar boys,
yeah,
unrestricted and
unrestricted
uninhibited.
and unquestioned. And like in a lot of the when I was a youth minister and I had took my volunteer teams to go, we had to do training with the North Texas Conference about pedophilia, and it just horrified me. Like the Catholic thing is something I remember the most from those, just survivors of being raped by a Catholic priest as adults now talking about what that did to them. And this is the story that this is the kind of thing I've seen in a lot of churches. Not just this scenario, but just anytime the preacher does a bad thing to someone. Like those kids, like these were adults, adult men in tears talking to us about what happened after they told on the preacher and how everyone was counseled that the preacher needs to be forgiven because that's the way of Jesus. And shame on you, little kid, for trying to ruin this good man of God when, he made a mistake. He has a hard life of celibacy, that kind of thing. They were taught that they were in the wrong for reporting it and that the preacher was to be forgiven. And that's just solid evil right there, in my
Absolutely.
opinion. Um, and there's corruption with money. There's, I watched a lot of laws get broken during my time in the church. And if I said anything about it, I got yelled at and had my job threatened. But they were breaking a lot of federal laws. They don't, and they can get away with it, and they know they can get away with it. And that's such hypocrisy to present yourself as a paragon of virtue and then cheat, cheat about money and such, and make kids apologize to their abusers and that kind of stuff. I just can't, man. um but I mean that's one thing I really wanted to bring up, talking
Yeah.
about evils of the church before we move on.
Because
So
that is a massive evil. That is a disproportionate evil
yeah,
that is commonly accepted, that Catholic priests touch little boys.
right. And it's
And
we have to say it's not all Catholic priests just for the sake of,
right,
but
right.
it's
Regardless of the validity, but because it is a stereotype means that
yeah,
there is a large amount of truth to
right.
that stereotype.
Because the system enables it. And that's what makes it an evil of the church rather than just the evil of select men
And
who are
so, yeah,
doing these things.
blood
The
money.
church defends them and protects them.
Right. And so we're talking money as well.
Yeah,
Joel Osteen builds this
God.
massive
Right,
church,
let's get back to that bastard.
and he's a millionaire. Like, there should not be millionaire
No,
preachers,
no. And
like,
asking for more money constantly.
constant
It's all,
selling holy
oh,
water,
I need a
selling.
private jet. The Lord needs me to have a private jet.
Right, because I gotta go
Kind of
speak
crap.
to people.
Right.
Yeah, and okay, well, you can fly economy like the rest of your Christian following.
Or start a
And
YouTube channel. You can preach to the whole world if they want to listen to you. You don't
right,
have to actually physically go anymore.
or you can train ministers to
Uh-huh.
go out and be the word in
Right, like
other
the
locations. You don't have to go do it.
yeah, like the circuit riders in the early Methodist Church rode on horseback from town to town preaching. They
Right,
didn't Yeah, it was nobody was a millionaire there. There were no millionaire circuit riders
right.
with their private train or whatever.
And then,
No.
like, who gets, here's an interesting question that you may or may not know the answer to. Who gets the money when I go to Barnes and Noble and buy a Bible?
The publisher. Well,
So
and
the
the
publisher just,
bookstore, the publisher, the
and the
bookstore,
bookstore.
and perhaps the editor, depending. But it's mostly like there's usually a team of editors on something like a Bible translation and a team of translators. It's not just one person. So really, yeah, it's the bookstore takes their cut, the publisher takes their cut. And the publisher, if they paid
And
the
where's the other cut
translators
go?
up
To the
front.
Vatican?
Well,
Like,
if it's a Catholic Bible, maybe. If it's produced by, because the Bible is in the public domain. Anyone
right,
can translate it from the original language as long as they're not plagiarizing another translation, which is part of why there's so much variety in translations in English, because you can't plagiarize the other translations. So you have to say it a little differently in every translation. So that makes it tricky. But yeah, the money, it mostly goes to the publisher.
yeah, it's the number one selling book in the world,
Yeah. Yeah. So
and
like
has
if
been for like the last 100 years.
uh-huh. Yeah,
This
exactly.
is
But so many publishers publish it, and that's why it's a lucrative book to publish. If you can get a translation out that can make waves or be noticed, you're gonna make
Oh yeah, like
tons
the
of
used
money, and you
Bible that I had.
you don't have to give Moses a cut.
Yeah,
He's dead. You don't have to give
he's
Jesus
dead.
or any church a cut.
But
Uh,
yeah, so touching kids, bad. Uh, there's lots of money in the church business. When I heard how much our preacher made
oh, right.
when I was on the council that allegedly decided that without any actual power to decide that or not,
Right.
um, because
That's
nobody was
right. You
going
were
to
on that.
question, how much our preacher got paid. I was immediately like, yo, I might become a preacher.
Right.
I didn't know that it'd be that ballin'
Uh-huh.
to be a preacher. Like, sure, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's a lot more to the job than I see on Sundays, but I was just like, that
Six
sounds like a lot
figures.
better. Yeah, 6 figures. I'm just like, I could make a 6 figure salary being a Methodist preacher.
Mm-hmm.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And all I got to do is lie to people every Sunday and
Right.
seem genuine
Right.
about it.
Right. Even though you get off the pulpit and you live and speak completely the opposite, you know,
Right.
it,
I could go out to the bar right afterwards.
mm-hmm.
Like,
Like the strip club,
I could go
there
anywhere. Yeah.
I have
I'm going to
stories.
I'm going to Malibu
Uh-huh.
right after we get off here. Hey, we got to wrap this sermon up. I got a flight to catch.
Yeah.
let me just hop in my Escalade and
Mhm.
drive down to the airport.
Right. And they tend to be removed from reality in that way too, because, like, I don't think it's wrong that the church, it's neither wrong nor right. It just kind of is a thing,
Right,
like parsonages that they pay for the preacher's house.
right.
So, like a preacher, I'm gonna try to not get sued by making it specific. Ask me later. But, I probably already told you this story, but, you know, dude he'd never had to pay rent. So went from college, seminary to being a preacher, had no idea what it was like in the real world.
There you
So
go.
for the first time, this person's church, they didn't do a parsonage, they gave an allowance for housing. They gave you a housing allowance, which this is your money to pay for a mortgage, go buy a house. Um, and so this preacher, like, someone went in to ask for a raise and got yelled at and, told we don't have that kind of money. I don't even make as much money as you, the preacher said. Or no, yeah, I make about the same amount as you do, is what this preacher who made six figures said. And he's like, because you don't understand. Some of that money I have to use to pay for my housing and for bills and utilities. And, so I don't make any more money than you do with your 20 grand a year. Preacher was trying to say he made 20 grand a year because some of his money had to be spent on his bills. I
Right,
was like,
because
what does he
80
think?
grand had to be spent on bills.
Right. What does he think the rest of us do with our money? Does he think we just live for free when we're
Right.
getting like squeezed
Jesus
out of
pays
our
our bills and
apartments? And
he
that's
has to pay
why
his
I'm
own.
asking for, or he was,
Yeah.
and that's why this person was asking for a raise.
Yeah.
But,
So money runs deep in the church.
it does.
And
It's
it is
dirty.
incredibly corrupting and
Yeah.
dirty and and
And you
stained
have
with
people
blood.
with money who are clueless as to the realities of everyday
That's
people.
why my dad stopped going to church.
Uh-huh.
Because my dad making a meager five-figure salary,
Right.
enough to support me and my two siblings,
Yeah.
surely.
Yeah, he made
Without
fairly
want,
decent money.
without
Middle
want
class
or
money.
need. Yes. And but he got tired of feeling guilty every Sunday whenever he's being asked to give 10% of his yearly paycheck
Uh-huh.
to the church because they can barely afford to keep the lights on.
Right. Right. And it's all that
Mm,
emotional manipulation, the guilt trips.
right. And my dad was just like,
It's control.
I barely make enough to keep our lights on.
Right.
He's like, I can stop coming here,
Uh-huh.
but the lights on my house are staying on.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Right. You
it's like
have to make those
so it's either
choices. You're not a bad person if you choose to keep lights on at your house for your kids rather than help the church keep their lights on. You're not a bad
right.
person.
Yeah, there
But they
there
try
is
to make you feel like
absolutely
you were.
a yeah, they try to make you feel that way. There's absolutely a
Mm-hmm.
time for offering and accepting of tithes during a
Yes.
church sermon,
Mm-hmm.
but there should absolutely not be a dictation going on in the background of how guilty you should feel if you don't
Right.
do that.
Right.
And that's
Exactly.
again
If
my
you
personal
can't.
experience
Mm-hmm.
because I just thought it was fun when I was a kid. I would ask my
Right.
dad for $1 because I wanted to put
Yeah.
it into the
Yeah.
shiny gold plate. That's what everybody else is doing. I want to put $1 in there.
Right.
And I knew kids that hadn't eaten in 3 days that would
Mm-hmm.
just take all the money from the plate and put it in their pockets.
Right.
And I'm just like, that is the best use of that money that it will probably ever see.
I agree. I
Because now
agree.
that kid can go and get a damn Big Mac
Uh-huh.
because he hasn't
You can eat.
eaten in 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And where would this money go otherwise?
Right.
I mean, hell, you're already a tax exempt organization as it is, funded by trust
Mm-hmm.
from rich, dead old people.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
That church was.
yeah. And so, like, looking at the offering plates every Sunday, I was like, they cannot expect to be getting more than maybe $1,000 from those offering plates every Sunday.
Right.
And I'm like, where does that $1,000 go?
Right. And it goes
And
all over. Like it just goes into
sure.
the operating budget, which is split up between all the departments. It's kind of who
And
spends it
so,
first.
yeah, as
It goes
meager
to
as it was,
salaries. It goes to
yeah,
everything.
I was like, okay, that boy gets to eat this week.
Hmm.
And I am much more happy knowing it goes to that boy eating than I am
Yeah.
to knowing it goes to God knows what.
Uh-huh.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no, it's true. And that's another like a hypocrisy there. The guilt tripping poor people for not giving more money is the opposite of what Jesus taught. Like as he told the story about the woman who gave the least money, but
The
compared to
most
what she had,
proportionally.
yes, to her own wealth. Jesus points out she gave more than any of you because she
Right.
gave
She
her
gave her last
last
coin.
coin. Yeah, exactly. And that's what the the actual icon of Christianity, the actual God of Christianity teaches, but Christianity itself is giving you a guilt trip. Like has like one year they had rich people stand up in front and
Oh my
brag
God.
about the
Yeah.
amount they gave. And it's like, tell us a percentage. It doesn't matter to any of we can't give millions of dollars to the church. I make 20 grand a year and I gave 10% dutifully when I was
Right.
employed at the church.
So $20.
Right.
No.
Right. No.
but yeah.
Well, $2,000 a year. And some of
Right.
it, like, I would put into the youth program and I would count that as my tithe because it needed to be done. It needed to be funded
Yeah.
up front. And then I would get reimbursed sometimes. And if I couldn't get reimbursed, I took that out of
There's
that
your tithe.
10%. And they would
Yeah.
gripe that I don't give a full 10%. And I'm like, I do actually.
The 10%
I
is the amount withheld from my $20,000 paycheck.
right.
Like I'm just
Right.
going to look at my $20,000 paycheck as it should be 28,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
but the 8 is being taken from me up front,
Right. Yeah.
and then I
And
still have to pay taxes on my salary.
right. And I did. I had to pay massive taxes every year. I never
The
got money
church
back.
doesn't have to. Who the
No, the
fuck is the
church is
church then?
tax exempt.
Yeah, then who is the church? Because isn't the church supposed to be the people?
Right. I mean, good
So why do
point.
I have to pay income tax on my income that I get from the
Yeah. Am
church
I
when the
am I
church?
not the church? I mean,
Right.
for real. Someone needs to take that to the Supreme Court. The church is the people, so we shouldn't have to pay taxes if we're
Yes.
Christians.
Oh my God, I would be Christian so fast. I'd be.
Right. No, the Christian church would just swell if
Yeah,
the court ruled that no, Christians don't have to pay taxes. Like
because
this,
the
let's
the
make
church,
separation of
they
church and
are the
state
church.
even more crazy extreme.
Right, because that would be a separation of church and state. I'm a Christian,
Yeah, so
so
I
I'm
am the
separate from the state.
church. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Jesus said.
Yup. Yup. Jesus.
Wherever two or more gather, that is the
I am
church.
with you. Yeah, that's the church. Yeah. Man. Oh, so let's go ahead and let's compare those two so tenets, I guess you'd call them, the two.
Yeah,
These
so
are
the
among the core teachings of each religion. We
right,
have
so the Ten Commandments and the 11 laws of the earth.
yeah.
The Ten Commandments
So it
from
is laws of the
Christianity.
earth.
It is laws of the earth.
Okay, I always say rules.
It rules laws. Yeah, it's rules laws.
Okay.
I've heard it referred to as both.
Okay.
But yeah, the Ten Commandments are the first four are literally just um, you shall not have no gods before me.
Right.
You shall not make idols. You shall not take the name of the Lord God in vain. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. So the first four are
they're all about
worship
worship
me.
me. Yeah.
Number 5, honor your father and your mother, to which God is both. So again, worship me.
Right.
Number 6, a pretty good one.
Mhm.
Objectively good. You shall not murder.
Right.
pretty
Don't
good.
kill, because that's taking away someone else's autonomy. That's taking away
Yeah,
someone else's freedom. I agree
yeah,
with that one. Honor your
yeah.
father and mother. Well, if
Good
they're
one.
worthy, it can be
Yeah.
good. Try to, but if they, I think you can't
See,
make that a non. It's
yeah,
there's too much nuance there. There's too many different parent-child relationships.
absolutely. So yeah, let's just pick apart these. That should be
Because
it.
yeah, I agree. Because honor your father and mother can be harmful.
Yeah,
If you're being
absolutely.
told you need to honor your father and mother, even though they beat you black and blue, even though
Be,
they're toxic and they,
because you took milk from the fridge when you weren't allowed to.
right, right. Or like they don't want to go to your gay wedding and they won't
Right.
help you pay for it. You're supposed to honor that. Don't get married. Like,
Right.
mm-mm. Now, some
Yeah.
parents aren't worth honoring.
Yeah. So you shall not murder. Good one. You
I
know,
agree.
needs to be told to people. Shouldn't need to be said, but
Yeah.
I guess needs to be said.
Yeah.
Number 7, you shall not commit adultery. I got no problems
Right.
with that one. You
Right.
know, I mean, yeah, you shouldn't.
hmm
Don't commit adultery. Good tenant doesn't need to be said though. Like,
I don't think so. I
does it
mean,
need to be a holy commandment
uh-huh.
to not cheat on your spouse?
Right.
You know, we're human animals. We screw things.
Right.
Um,
As all animals do.
you shall not steal. Another good one, but it seems
Yeah.
kind of out of, like, a lot of these commandments seem out of place.
hmm
Like, these are supposed to be holy commandments, and a
From
holy
God.
commandment is don't steal.
hmm
Like, that seems kind of racist, you know?
Racist? How? I
It
don't
it just
follow that.
seems it just seems kind of like statusist, like
Hmm.
it seems kind of uh you know like,
Well,
if I'm
protecting
hungry,
the rich.
protecting the rich,
It is
like,
protecting. That's true. Because yeah, if you're saying don't steal, but what if the government doesn't give you any choice?
right.
Like there was this great line on Queer as Folk, the American version of that TV series, where one of the characters is being forced to lie at work and he feels bad about lying about who he is. We haven't gotten to that commandment yet, but I'm thinking of the same kind of thing with stealing. Like, then, one of his friend was trying to help him do it, help him be in the closet at work because he had to keep his job. And
You
he
shall
just
not bear
said,
false witness.
right. But yeah, but he said it's not lying if they make you lie. I would say the same thing about stealing. Like if you have to steal bread on the streets because no one will give you a job interview. Like if you've been homeless for 10 years and you stink and your hair is matted up, your clothes are filthy and threadbare. Like it's not your fault necessarily. Like, I don't know how you got to be there, but if you were to try to climb up and no one lets you, and you have to steal some bread to survive, steal some money to survive, you're telling me God doesn't understand that?
You get out of
Like,
prison, and for whatever reason, and you've got 3 child support payments to pay for. You've got
right,
a job, but that doesn't even, your entire paycheck goes towards child support payments.
right, right.
And
You're not a monster. You're,
right, but you still have to eat.
you have to eat. You have to pay your
And
bills.
right, and so maybe you choose to eat first, but then you have to pay child support. Well, you got to steal.
Right.
You got to, yeah. And
It's
so
kind of just like the parents one. It's like there
yeah,
should be nuance. Like maybe you can't safely honor your parents because they're monsters. And maybe you have to steal.
yeah.
Maybe you
So
have to
was
lie.
Casey Anthony's child supposed to honor Casey Anthony?
Right.
Like, yes, mother, please drown me in a
hmm
tub because I honor you.
Right. And I mean,
And
you can look at that. That one, I think there's so many different ways to look at what does it mean by honor. But yeah, I
yeah,
mean, it's a
sometimes
weird
honoring
one.
yeah, disenfranchising yourself from them
Mm.
and distancing.
Like, yes,
That is
I'm going to
honoring
honor
them.
your teachings by getting as far the hell away from you as I can for the rest of my life.
Absolutely. So yeah, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor.
Right.
That's
See,
a
I
that's
like that
that's an
one.
interest that's an interesting one to unpack because
Hmm.
it again just seems out of place for holy commandments because
Yeah.
it's
Well,
basically don't lie.
yeah, it is. It's
No.
we yeah, it's don't lie about people. Like, don't accuse someone of doing something they did not do just to get in trouble, get them in trouble. Because I mean, that's a lot of times and places throughout antiquity. There you would be and they were trying to do that in Texas. Let's be real. Like
Oh yeah,
bounty hunters on
yeah,
and the abortion thing, like bear false witness, you get paid.
yeah. Sell
Like,
out your doctor for performing an
yeah,
abortion 6 years ago when it
right.
was legal.
Or even just accuse them. Like,
Right.
uh ruin their reputation, get them arrested. Like, there would be things where, like, if you would turn in your neighbor, you get all their stuff. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of bearing false witness going on, and these were at the core laws for people wandering in the desert, allegedly, that people who were settled in the desert, like, there was a lawless territory, they were trying to rein it in. Like, every law always comes from something that's going on that needs to be addressed, and that's, these are holy laws, but they were brought down from the mountaintop to get these people under control. So I mean, yeah, that's something. The context is important, I think, and we lose that with the Ten Commandments just as absolutes. You know, like, don't bear false witness, don't cry wolf, don't tattletale on people just to get them in trouble or just to get their stuff. I think that's a good one, personally. But it
Yeah.
is like
No.
everything. It's a weird collection of rules,
Yeah. And then number 10 is you shall not covet.
right?
And doesn't that one isn't that one these are obviously um these are not uh what is the King James version, because isn't that what last one supposed to be like covet another's wife or something?
I'm
Isn't
not
that the
sure. Hold on.
full
I've got the Bible I like to use. The New Jerusalem translation is my favorite. Uh, but I'm not sure. Like, yeah, I'd have to go dig it out over there real quick. Still haven't, as you can tell from the boxes if you're watching on YouTube, but we haven't fully finished moving in yet. Especially me.
yeah, no, number okay, so it is you shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor.
Uh-huh.
So wife having belonged to your neighbor. So we're talking
Right.
complete
Well,
male.
right.
Like you're
Because it
not
was your wife belonged to you if you were a man back then. She was she was livestock,
so this is
basically,
that's the New
by
International
law.
Translated Version of Exodus
Okay.
20.
That's not a bad translation, in my opinion.
And God, yeah, no. Remember, the Sabbath day is the longest
Oh,
of
really?
the Ten Commandments
Let's
because
hear
it
it.
goes on and on and on. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For
Hmm.
in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore, the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy.
Right.
Jesus,
Yeah,
literally.
that's long. And I think having a day off by law is good, but again, putting it into context. If you read the whole scripture, yeah, if you were caught so much as picking up a twig on Saturday, it was punishable by torturous death. You were put on the rack. So that's bad. Like, just because
That's
then you have
bad.
people just looking for, and then, like, again, you have Jesus like calling that crap out, where he wanted to heal people on Saturday, the Sabbath, and the, the people of the law, the Jewish hierarchy, they didn't want him to do it. They were like, that is a sin. That is evil. You can't, that's wrong. You can't heal people on the Sabbath. And he's like, you're missing the point of that law. Like, we're doing a good thing. You can do good things on the Sabbath. You're not letting someone die in the street is not what God wanted, is what his take on it, according to the Gospels. But yeah, so I mean, when you take it to that extreme, which it was from the beginning taken to that extreme, keep the Sabbath holy, then it's a bad law. If it were just to make us stop and chill out one day a week, I think that's good. But because people should, like, I think prioritizing rest and recuperation is a great idea. But making it a law punishable by torture and death, maybe not.
Maybe not. Yeah, so you shall not covet, that's a weird
Right.
law too. It's a
It
weird
is.
one to put in there.
They're all weird. They're all weird. So it doesn't feel
Like
very uniform. Like in
it
its
doesn't feel very holy. Like it doesn't feel very like these are the universal things that you should abide by.
right. Because again, they were mostly specific to a desert community
Right,
and what
absolutely.
laws they needed to rein some stuff in, or the
Control.
leaders felt they needed. Yeah, control is what it is. Like, yeah, don't murder people.
Because
That's
yeah,
a good law in any
what did
society.
Jesus come in and say? And like he said like here are the new commandments I bestow upon you. And it's like love
Right.
God, love
L-
yourself, and love your neighbor.
yeah, yeah.
And like that
Love
was
the
it.
Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, all that stuff. Love your neighbor as yourself. Not bad. I mean, God, it's your interpretation, but loving your neighbor,
Yeah, love is not very up for interpretation.
yeah. And
Like,
love, have we seen any love in the Ten Commandments?
no, it is all don't,
Yeah, it's a
don't,
bunch of
don't.
don't. Yeah. That's true. It's very spun in a negative way.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember, I think I put y'all through an exercise once in Sunday school or something, where it was, let's rewrite the Ten Commandments in the positive. Like, do not murder could be value life, value the
Right.
lives of others as much as you value your own life, or don't steal. It's respect other people's property. Do
Yeah.
respect other people's property. Um, don't covet your neighbor's stuff. Do appreciate what you have more than you wish you had what other people had.
Eight
Like,
of the 10 commandments I just counted are you shall nots.
yeah, yeah, and that's, yeah. I mean, it's negative. It makes you feel like you're being oppressed. Like,
Yeah.
do nots are oppressive, especially when they come from the divine. Um, no, wait, so where are we? How many have we?
That was 10.
That was 10?
Yeah. Yeah. No
Okay.
gods before me, no idols, don't take the Lord's name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, keep holy, honor your father and mother, don't murder, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't bear false witness, and don't covet.
Oh, I keep yawning. I'm sorry, long day.
No, you're
But
good. Long day.
yeah, okay. So, there's some good in there,
There
but
is.
I think it's
There is.
mostly, you know, narcissistic lick my feet, I'm God, kind of, which I can't get behind because I can't accept that the supreme being could be petty. That you're the supreme being of the universe and all you want, you created the universe so that someone would worship you.
Yeah, 40% of your commandments are worship me.
Yeah, no gods before me. Note he didn't say there weren't any other gods.
Right.
He just said don't put
Honestly.
any of them before me. I am
Right.
God number one.
Yeah. Numero uno right here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Um,
so yeah, on to the 11 rules of the earth.
rules of the earth. Okay.
Just objectively speaking,
Mm-hmm.
here we go. Number one, and these are all written by man. Like,
Uh-huh.
the Ten Commandments were supposedly written by God. So these are
Right.
all written by man.
Right.
And so their words have much less power just by nature,
Yeah.
but you can make sense of a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I tend to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And some of them, I mean, it's also like the Bible, where some of them there's stuff I
are
laugh
just
at.
they're just
Like,
weird. Yeah, some
yeah,
of them
they're
are just
just weird. But go on.
yeah. So number one is do not give opinions or advice unless you are asked.
I like that.
Yeah, these are written
To a
in
degree.
this. These are written in the 60s. 1967 is when
Yeah.
these were written.
Uh,
So a good
but
2,000 years, give or take,
yeah,
after
approximately. Yeah.
the Ten Commandments were bestowed upon Moses,
Yeah.
and there was no burning bush for these.
Right,
Um,
right. This is just a guy being a guy and saying, I'm writing these. He's not attributing it to God on the mountaintop where he conveniently went by himself and was witnessed by no one, receiving these laws from Satan himself. That's not
right.
there. It's like he's owning, like, the thing about Satanism is, yeah, it's more
He looked at
honest,
humanity
straightforward about what it
and
is
said,
and what it's
"Here
saying.
are 11 rules.
Yeah. And what was the first one again?
Do not give opinions or advice unless you
Unless
are
you are
asked."
asked. And see, okay, that one I can see good and bad on that one, because sometimes it's like silence is permissive, you
Right.
know? Like if nobody asked me to speak up for a minority who's,
Right.
and I'm just going to keep it to myself because the rules of the
Subjective.
earth say nobody asked me for my opinion, so I'm going to go home.
It's
No.
subjective.
Yeah.
Because I could make a case that society asked you.
Right. But did they? Did
Society
society
is
ask
asking.
me?
Glenn Clark, yeah, it's subjective,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Right.
And what I take from that is basically be selective with how you open your mouth,
Yeah, I
how and when
agree.
you open your
I
mouth.
agree. And I mean the Ten
Um,
Commandments are also, like, a lot of people look at them subjectively. Like they put
right,
their spin on it. What does honor your father and mother mean to me? You
right.
know? Like,
And we sort of went over that too.
yeah,
And it's honor them to the extent that you are able to.
exactly. And that's not a bad thing. You do that to
It's not.
everyone.
Right.
Give everyone the
If
honor
your
they're
dad
due.
doesn't want to see you, a boy, kissing another boy,
Uh-huh.
then don't invite your dad to your wedding.
Right.
See how he
Right.
likes it.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
that's
maybe that is
honoring him.
honoring him. Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't want to see it, and so you don't invite him.
Yeah. You just have to say, but you're not in our life.
You're not in our
If
life.
you don't
I am
want to be in
honoring
your
you.
life, honored. Yeah, good point. So I mean, so you're gonna have to put your personal spin on any of these sets
All
of
of these.
tenets. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, but
So number
proceed.
two,
Uh-huh.
do not tell your troubles to others unless you are sure they want to hear them.
I really like that one.
Basically, don't just complain to complain. That's how
Yeah.
I look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, unless you're looking for actual advice, don't just arbitrarily complain about your life to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Your coworkers, or like, yeah, my friends, I'm gonna complain to them.
Right.
But
And
like,
most of your friends are gonna
my
let you know that they want you to. They
they
want to
want
hear
you
it.
to. It's an open invitation with your
Uh-huh.
friends.
Yeah.
But the Starbucks employee or the bartender does not want to hear about your divorce,
Right.
or your foreclosure, or
Yeah.
any of that.
Exactly. It makes me
They don't want
laugh.
to hear how you just got diagnosed with HIV.
Uh-huh.
Like, they don't want to hear any of that.
No, they don't care. Like, it makes me think of, like, we have a mutual friend. who like, okay, you know how like at the checkout, if you happen to go to a checkout with a person there who checks out your groceries or whatever, and they'll say, "So how are you today?" And everyone just says, "Fine," moving on, you know.
Yeah.
Well, they ask this mutual friend of ours anytime I take him to the store or something when he needed a ride back in the day. Well, so how are you today? Well, I'm still in a lot of pain, and like, well, I went to the doctor and blah blah. They just start telling him everything, and I'm like, you beautiful innocent. They don't care. They didn't really want you to answer that question.
No,
Like,
no. Yeah. So yeah,
you're
don't tell your
unloading
troubles.
all of it to the cashier because they asked how you're doing. Yeah,
Yeah. No,
that just
thank
reminded
you.
me of funny story. Sorry, but
No, you're good because that is hilarious. Because yeah,
right.
I just say good and you,
Yeah, same. That's what
and
everybody does. That's just the
and they say
general.
good, and then
Yeah.
we move about our lives
Yup.
as cogs in the system, fellow cogs in the system. So number
Yeah.
three, when in another's lair, show him respect, or else do not go there.
I love that one.
And so the language is funny,
It is funny.
like,
Lair, that is lair. But it's
but see,
like,
I like it too
yeah.
because lair is subjective. It could be
Uh-huh.
my house, it could be my
Oh,
office
true.
at my
True.
workplace.
Your lair, your
It could be
territory.
it could be my car.
Uh-huh.
It could be anywhere that is my territory.
Right.
And it just says basically show them respect or don't go there.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Like my place of business. Don't come into my place. The customer's always right. My ass. You come in here and you're disrespectful as hell. I'm gonna tell you to get out.
yeah.
Right to refuse service. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's true. Like,
it's a good law.
uh-huh. Like, that's why I wouldn't like I wouldn't go like there've been maybe two occasions in the past 9 years, almost 10, that I've sat in a church for whatever reason, but I don't go in there and tell them how much I hate everything they're doing, what hypocrites they are. It's like I just go along with it. I'm there for
Yep.
something else. I'm there for
Yep.
a baptism that's important to a family. I'm there for a Christmas Eve service with friends. I'm not gonna,
Yep. They say
spew
bow
all of
your head,
my. Yeah, it's like I
and I don't.
quietly bow my head or something, or I'm just
See,
quiet anyway. I'm
yeah,
quiet anyway.
you'll find your best friends whenever they say, "Now, please bow your head,"
And
and
you
you
look
look
around the
around.
room.
And you look
Yeah.
around the room; those are your homies,
Right.
the ones who are not bowing heads. But yes, I'm still respectful of everything that's
Yes.
happening because
Yes.
I went there, and so I damn sure
And that
better be
was, yeah,
respectful.
because it was your choice to go there. You know what they're all about. The people who you're in their lair, you know.
Yeah, I know. And so number four is in conjunction with number three.
Mhm.
If a guest in your lair annoys you, treat him
Oh,
treat him cruelly and without mercy. So
yeah, that
yeah,
one, no, I'm not on board with that one. I
yeah.
mean,
So
I'm all about if someone's annoying you, there are more assertive ways to handle it, even walking away. You don't have to be
right.
vicious to people.
No, but they're in your lair
Yeah,
and they're annoying you.
yeah,
So treat them cruelly and without mercy, maybe taking it a step too far.
yeah. Like that's
Maybe
very,
just maybe just don't invite them next time. Put up with it now. Let them know your grievances in a neutral setting afterwards, and
yeah,
then determine whether or not they are willing to not be annoying,
right, right.
and then how you want to invite them next time.
Uh-huh. And like I'm having a weird movie in my head while we're talking about this one. Because I'm thinking about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And when they picked up
Oh,
Jar Jar,
Jar
I was like,
Jar.
what if
Yeah.
what if like what if the Jedi were following this rule? Like what if it was the rules of the earth were part of the Jedi code. And like you've got, oh, Misa eats a breakfast. Misa, really weird. Blah, 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 blah. Like, and they just start hitting him and crap, like just being cruel and
They
merciless. And
cut his tongue
start,
off.
yeah, they cut his tongue off and beat him with it.
Hey, well, save
Because
that
he's
for
annoying.
another episode. So we have a Star Wars episode
Oh, that's true. We
eventually.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Okay.
yes, no, that is a good point. Jar Jar would be treated cruelly and without mercy
Right.
if Jedi adhered to the 11 rules of the Earth.
Right. So
Um,
it's not a nice one, that one.
yeah, here you go. Here's one, number 5, that is noticeably absent from the Ten Commandments.
Uh-huh.
Do not make sexual advances unless you are given the mating signal.
Right. Which I
Weird
joke about
language.
that one, but yeah, because I
Weird
think what's the
language.
mating signal? Fireflies' butts light up. I guess that's the mating signal. Light
Yeah.
up your butt. But no,
But
I know what they're
essentially,
saying. Yeah.
don't rape people.
Yeah, don't rape people. Where was that in the Old Testament? Nowhere,
Yeah.
because women were
Nowhere.
not people to
Women
them.
were property.
Yeah. Rape, it's not a thing. Like if it's your wife, that's not rape,
Dude, and that was legal until the 90s here in Texas.
right?
Your
Jeez.
wife, there was no grounds for a wife to claim rape against her husband until the 90s
Right, because
in
he's
Texas.
entitled.
Right.
He's entitled to have sex with his wife by law. So yeah, thousands of years ago, Ten Commandments, not even a consideration in God or Moses's mind.
Yep, but we haven't had a messiah since then apparently. You
Right.
know, yeah, we still teach the 10 commandments.
Yeah.
You know, that's the big hang up here. Is here are some laws from 40 years ago, 60 years ago
Hmm.
that sound pretty good, but yet
Yeah.
there's been zero revisions in 2000 years to
Right.
the commandments of the Christian faith.
Right.
And
They might interpret some things differently or pretend they're not there. Like all the
right,
pro-slavery stuff. A lot of people
cherry
just
picking.
pretend it's
Yeah,
not. It is cherry picking. And people will get angry at you when you accuse them of cherry picking, even though they are objectively cherry picking. It's like,
right.
well, you say keep the Sabbath holy, but you do all the work on Saturday. You take Sunday off. That's not the Sabbath. You should be
Not the
now put
Sabbath.
on the rack and tortured. Um,
Yeah, yeah. And why did we change it from Saturday to Sunday? Just to be different. Literally, just to be different, just to absorb the pagan holidays.
right. Well, yeah,
Like
to line up more with like
to
Roman
oppose, yeah,
stuff.
to oppose Judaism,
Right.
to separate yourself from Judaism
Hmm.
because you're not Judaism,
Right.
you're Christianity.
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
our Sabbath is Sunday,
But
whereas
nowhere in the Bible did God change the day. It
no,
was so the people who are biblical literalists are,
should
yeah,
be having church on Saturday.
they should be having church on Saturday
And I agree with
and
that because
doing
football's on
nothing
Sunday.
else. Right. And I mean, according to the Bible, nobody should be playing football on Saturday. And so they don't. The football players are good at that one. Like,
Yeah,
but they're
no, football players are
practicing.
great. Yeah. Well, not college. No, when they're in college, they're rowdy and they play. The
Oh,
college
right.
football takes place on Saturdays,
Right.
and so, but they don't know yet. But once
Hmm.
they get to the NFL, they get baptized, and you know
Right. They get
they
baptized.
they learn the mistakes of their ways. And meanwhile, our pastor on Sundays was like, "Hey, the Cowboys game is in 30 minutes, so I'm going to wrap this up pretty quick,"
Yeah.
and then would proceed to wrap it up pretty quick because the Cowboys play at noon.
Right. I mean, so the Sabbath
And
wasn't isn't really holy at all in Christianity. That's just
no,
there's
it's not.
that's the
There's
commandment that is just laughed off pretty much.
yeah, yeah. Along with the other three in the first one, don't take the
Right.
Lord's name in vain. Here in
Right.
Texas, you'll hear any Texan say "God damn it,"
Right.
you know,
Which,
at least 4 times a day.
and that's not really the main meaning. Like that is because you're using God's name for your own like gratification there, but it was really more
Right.
like when Moses like did things like part of the Red Sea, he hit a rock with his staff and water came out, And then he's like, look what I've done for you people, but it was God who did it. That was taking
Right.
the Lord's name in vain, like taking credit for the things God did.
I like
I know,
your
I
little
don't know what that was.
I am God.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh well.
Ooh.
That's how God talks.
Yeah. We should get Chase in here. Um, but yeah, so don't make sexual advances.
Yeah, great
Number
law.
5, great law. Absolutely great. You can't be a Satanist and a rapist at the same time.
Right, exactly.
You get to
Love
pick
it.
one. Um, so number 6 is somewhat similar to number what is it? Number 8.
Hmm.
Because number 6 of the 11 laws of the earth is do not take that which does not belong to you, unless it is a
Aha.
burden to the other person and he cries out to be
To have it
relieved,
taken. Yeah, to be relieved of it. Yeah.
which is interesting.
It's interesting.
Absolutely open for interpretation.
Very much so. It's,
It,
dangerously so, but
dangerously so, sure.
uh-huh. Because that
But
kind
it's
of leaves it
basically don't
open
steal.
for you can interpret someone crying out to be relieved any way that is convenient for you if you want to steal something. It's kind of the opposite of don't covet in a way. It's like don't steal unless you're coveting something and you feel like you deserve it more than the person who has it. Or, you could look at it that way, but it's really, like if somebody is burdened by a possession and
Right,
you wouldn't be burdened by it, so you feel like you're doing them a favor. But the thing is, I feel like it's their choice to be burdened by a thing. To me, that one kind of is hypocritical to the other tenets of Satanism because it is kind of encouraging you to decide what, another person gets to have in their life. It's like
right,
you kind of overriding their autonomy, which I
right,
think is bad. So,
right. And one example that I can think of that makes this law very good would
mhm.
be, say they have a pill addiction.
Yes. Okay, see.
Those hydroconons or oxycodons do not belong to you,
Mhm.
but the other one is clawing at their face
Right.
because they need their pills,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
take them.
Or if they're
You
cutting their arms or something and you
Yeah,
take the knife.
yeah, you take the knife,
Yeah.
and
You take the
those are
gun they're being
examples.
irresponsible with. You save
Right,
lives. Okay, yeah. So nuance. This one
absolutely.
is good and bad depending on who's interpreting it, how, and in what circumstance.
But see, that's what I love about Satanism,
Hmm.
is because it is the language itself leads you to interpret things,
Right. Right. Good
and
point.
the
The
language
mating
lends.
signal.
Yeah, the mating signal.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's different for everybody.
Right. But it's just
I've had
someone.
girlfriends that would never initiate any sort
Uh,
of sexual behavior,
right.
and they say, do it for me, and I'll say
Hmm.
no if I don't like it.
Right.
And so that's the mating signal. The mating signal is a no, a verbal
Right.
no.
Right. It's like
Whereas
you have
anything
the mating
outside of that
signal
is fine.
unless I say no. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Whereas other people, it is very obvious,
Hmm.
and it is a clear yes or clear no.
Right.
And the mating signal varies from couple to couple, or
Yeah.
group to group, I should
Uh-huh.
say.
But a danger
Um,
in that one's wording though would be like, because you could even lend credence to the, well, she was asking for it by the way she was dressed argument. Like she gave me the mating
Absolutely.
signal based on what she was wearing. Um, just having it unspecified what the mating signal is, what constitutes an okay mating signal isn't spelled out in there. It's kind of giving
Right,
people too much credit that,
right.
everybody's going to know, oh, it's not something that
But
gives
see,
me
the language is the
the
best it
rape.
could be.
Yeah.
in a one line scenario, I feel like the mating signal is deserving of defining.
Yeah.
Thus, you cannot proceed one way or the other without the mating signal having been defined
Right.
from person to person. It is from one person to another. Do not make sexual advances. That's you, unless you are given the mating signal, which is them.
Right. Right. And in those terms, yeah.
And
It's
so,
like it's
thus,
basically consent. Like the
right?
mating signal is consent, I think.
Yes, yes. And so, yeah, great laws so far.
Yeah.
Up for interpretation, and depending on the individual, a very poor interpretation could be made.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is where it gets weird, because number 7 is
Oh,
acknowledge the power of magic if you have
right.
employed it successfully to obtain your desires. If you deny the power of magic after having called upon it with success, you will lose all that you have obtained.
Right.
So
Yeah,
riddle
that
me
one's
this,
a
Glenn.
little bit more outside the realm of the practical and, magic. It's like, how do you define magic? What is magic to you? Like, and, is it like that one's just way out there? That's kind of like in the Ten
Way
Commandments,
out
there were
there.
some that just, you're like, those don't really seem to fit in holy tenets. But that's kind of this one doesn't really fit with the rest of them that are just more practical,
More
more,
practical.
yeah. Um, so magic, like, what is magic? I personally, I can interpret that one as like, if consciousness creates reality or something, like,
Yeah, or meditation results in manifestation.
right, manifestation. That's good. Like, if that's something that you think is a thing, I
Right.
guess, don't be reckless with that.
Because the first line of it is acknowledge the power of magic if you have employed it successfully.
Uh-huh. Okay. See, now that helps because
And
most
so you
people
can
aren't.
basically disregard this one
Uh-huh.
if you don't deem anything you do in life as magical,
Right.
then you can just skip over this one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's
But
most people can just skip this one, which is why it's kind of really out of place.
it's so out of place.
Yeah. But
And that's why there's 11 of these and not 10.
right, because we have the one that doesn't fit. So
Right.
otherwise it'd be 10. But I mean, yeah, so if you have employed magic, like if you used it to save Hogwarts, don't take credit for that. It was like that was magic, man. I'm just good at magic.
Right. Or if just, you know, or if you like as an atheist, like if you prayed to God for a safe delivery of your child,
Right.
you don't know who you prayed to
Right.
or whatever, but your wife is pregnant and is in the delivery room,
Yeah.
and you pray for a safe delivery, and you
Mm-hmm.
get a safe delivery.
Mm-hmm.
You prayed to something.
Yup.
You
Even if it was
manifested
yourself.
something,
Like,
right?
yeah.
You may not like because people do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
God, I've never prayed to you before, but if this happens
Oh
now,
yeah. Right.
you
True.
know, and things like that. And so that's what this law is saying, is that if you pray to anything, if you manifest, if you meditate, if you use magic, if
Uh-huh.
you feel there is magic in the world, like the miracle of birth,
Yeah.
uh, you know,
Yeah.
then
Like how would you determine magic to exist? Like
right.
what you interpret that as.
So that's the most interesting one here,
Yeah, it's
by
interesting. That's a
far.
word. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the most subjective.
Uh-huh.
Moving on, do not complain about anything to which you need not subject yourself.
I love that one.
Love that
I
one.
can't find anything wrong with that one. It's like if you're doing it to
No,
yourself, shut the hell up. Change your ways. Like stop doing it to yourself.
because it causes you to think.
Mm-hmm.
If you use that, like I use that in my darkest times in life, I've used that particular one as a mantra
Yeah.
because it causes you to think. Do not complain about anything to which you need not subject
Subject
yourself.
yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it causes you to think about things you should subject yourself to.
Uh-huh.
For starters, what should I subject myself to?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then should I complain about them?
Mm-hmm.
Because basically the antithesis of that would be complain about things to which you subject yourself.
Right. Exactly.
Like
So it's
you are
like,
allowed to complain about things that bother you.
mm-hmm.
In conformance with rule number 2, don't tell your troubles to others unless you're sure they want to hear them.
Right. Right.
Um, but if it's just me on my own,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm in my room by myself, I'm allowed to vocalize
Oh
my
yeah.
discontent with things that I should be discontent with.
Right.
But it really causes me to think about, should I really let that thing that coworker said about me bother me?
Uh-huh.
Do I care about that coworker? Do I care about
Right.
their opinions?
Uh-huh.
Do I care about the effect their opinions will have on me? None of which I care about, so I should not complain about it. I should not worry about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's
Beautiful
also,
commandment.
yeah, I mean it's also kind of like if you don't do anything but eat whole pumpkin pies,
Yeah,
breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you're bitching about how fat you are, it's like shut up. Just stop eating
right,
pumpkin pies 3 times a day. Like I'm not trying to diminish like it's not like all fat people aren't just, they are reckless and overeat.
right.
It's like but the people who are fat because they do that, I should find a better example, I think. Like just think that people complain about like if you're in a toxic relationship and you
Yes.
keep going back, you know, if you keep going back to an
Or you're out
abusive
of the
girlfriend or
toxic
boyfriend.
relationship would be a better example, I think,
Uh-huh.
maybe. Do not complain about anything that which you need not subject yourself. You're out of the toxic relationship.
Yeah.
And now your toxic ex is out doing more toxic things.
Uh-huh.
Should you subject yourself to what they are doing? Should
Right.
that concern you
Okay. Yeah.
anymore?
Uh-huh.
Because
Yeah. Or
don't
should you just
subject
let
yourself,
it
because it
go?
let it go.
It's
It
not
doesn't
in your
concern you
life
anymore.
anymore.
They're back with their ex.
Mm-hmm.
Like now they're out there being toxic. Yes, like
Yeah.
they've gone and done yet another toxic thing. But
Yeah.
should you subject yourself to that? That's
Right.
the main thing that I love about this, is it because it really frames into mind what
Uh-huh.
you should subject yourself to.
Right. And yeah, and like letting go of something toxic and not subjecting yourself to it anymore. Also, it doesn't negate processing a thing. Like I think there's a difference between complaining about something and processing it. Like
Right.
going to
And that is
counseling because you just got out of a toxic abusive relationship isn't just mindless complaining. That's you trying to grow through what you went through. And that I think
absolutely
is valid. That's valuable. And that's not, to my mind, what
complaining.
this one is addressing. This
It's
one is
not
just
complaining.
complaining. Complaining doesn't fix anything
Right.
if it's not constructive. Like,
A complaint is a statement that has
yeah.
no learning curve to
Mm-hmm.
it.
And
Like there's nothing to be learned.
it's asking for people to see you as a victim or take pity on you. Like if you're complaining about
Victimizing.
this is happening, it's like I'm standing out in the rain, I'm getting so wet. This is terrible. I wish I weren't getting so wet. Go
Yeah, that's
inside.
a
Go
that's a great
inside.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great allusion to this whole thing. That's a great metaphor, because it's you could reframe this one as, instead of do not complain, don't victimize yourself.
Right.
Don't
Right.
victimize yourself to anything that you shouldn't victimize yourself about.
And that's kind of how I hear that one. It's
Yeah.
like don't do crap to yourself and then expect people
Don't
to feel
yeah,
bad for you.
I love that. Don't stand in the rain when you can go inside.
Uh-huh.
Don't complain about being rained on when there's a
Right.
roof right next to you.
Right.
So and then number 9 and 10 are just yet again laws, like number 5. Number 5 was basically don't rape.
Yeah. Good rule.
Good rule. Number 9, do not harm little children.
Yeah. That's a great Satanists are telling you don't harm little children, don't rape people.
That is a direct shot, no doubt, against Catholicism.
Yes, surely.
Surely that is in there just to draw attention to the harming of little children in the Catholic
Right.
Church.
Right. Which is, I mean, it's unofficial policy, but it's policy
Right.
because you're protected if you are a pedophile Catholic priest. At least, historically they have been. I'm not sure what's going on to address that right now, so I don't want to, say that I do, but because I don't look into it that much because I'm
Right.
not a Catholic, I'm not a child, I don't, but I do care. I mean, it really did affect me
Well,
listening to those testimonies
as an
from
empath, it is hard to
survivors.
stay in tune with every horrible thing that is going on in the world.
Exactly, exactly, and that's one of those things, like child abuse,
Like
pedophilia in particular,
I just want to
really
assume that
gives me
things are being
nightmares.
done against them,
Yeah, I hope
but
so.
I don't have the heart to keep track of it all.
Exactly. No, that's exactly what it is. It's just
So yeah, number 9, don't harm little children. Number 10, do not kill non-human animals unless you are attacked or for your food.
mhm.
So
That's a good one.
that's a direct, and again, this is a direct shot at stereotypes against Satanism.
Right, because it's like
Animal
don't
sacrifice.
kill the black cats on Halloween. Like
Yeah,
that's not in organized Satanism. They won't
right.
tolerate
Don't
that.
cut the goat's head off unless you're going to eat the goat.
Right. Or if it's got rabies and it's trying to kill you. Like you kill a bear and don't eat it. If it's about to kill you, you can shoot the bear.
Yeah,
But yeah, don't no sport hunting, I guess,
yeah,
is not cool with Satan. Satan
yeah.
doesn't like
It's
sport hunting
because
for the Satan.
it's sociopathic.
Yeah,
It's psychopathic to just want to kill things to display as trophies.
yeah,
I mean, if you're not going to eat it, what are you killing it for?
right, exactly. There's absolutely no sense to it. There's no
If it's not
reason.
right, if it's not harming your ecosystem
Mhm.
or your personal family or body,
Yeah.
and you're killing it and not eating it, what are you doing? Tiger hunting, rhino hunting, elephant
Mhm.
hunting? You better be eating it.
Yeah, yeah, for real.
And so then we get to number 11, which is a very fun one.
Hmm.
Um, and some would say this is an evil law, but when walking in open territory, bother no one. If someone bothers you, ask him to stop. If he does not stop, destroy him.
Destroy him. Yes, that's one of the ones I laugh at.
Yeah, it is
But
one. It's one of those ones
like I
that
feel it. I feel it. I just don't know if acting on that is, I'm pretty sure it's not the best usually to destroy people who won't,
right.
but get
And so
away from them is more my thing.
and destroy him is, because the main thing, I said this at the beginning before I started reading all of these. The
Mhm.
10 Commandments were written by God.
They're
If you
attributed
believe
to, yeah,
if you believe in the 10 Commandments and you believe that they are what they are, then they were written by God.
right,
These were all written by a man 60 years ago.
yeah, yeah. These were, and never claims to have been given these laws by Satan himself.
Right.
Like never
These are
does
a
it.
collection of observations
Yeah.
to lead a more individualistic life,
Hmm.
to lead a fruitful and individualistic life.
Yeah.
And so you know, basically these are way more open to interpretation. Is
Hmm.
how I see them. Is the 10 Commandments were written by God. These were written
Right.
by man.
Right. So yeah, by their
And
nature, they're more open to interpretation, even in the context of being teachings of the church.
right,
Whereas the Ten Commandments, you're not allowed to question them. You're not
absolutely
allowed
not.
to.
My grandmother was excommunicated
Really?
because she got a divorce.
Oh,
because
see, I have
that's
relatives who
adultery.
had that. Yeah.
Yeah, because that is adultery. You got married in front of God and His people, and a divorce is adultery by nature.
Yeah.
And you are seeking to have, relations with a man outside of your marriage.
Right.
Only the first marriage counts.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, my mother is a daughter of, you know, an excommunicated marriage.
Right.
So what does that make her?
The
Yeah,
mother of a Satanist.
yeah, exactly. And
Okay.
so, like, when walking in open territory, bother no one. If someone bothers you, ask him to stop. If he does not stop, destroy
Destroy
him.
him. Hmm.
And I've read essays from the man who wrote this article,
Uh-huh.
and he went into further detail on what he meant by destroy him.
Okay, good.
Because
Let's hear it.
that's the main issue with this whole
Mm-hmm.
law, is because you know clearly says destroy him.
Yep.
And what they meant by that was get ahead. When, like, the best form of revenge is bettering
Ah,
yourself.
yes. Okay, I can get
And
behind that.
so, if he does not stop, destroy him. It's okay. So, like, let's say I'm walking out on the street and Glenn comes up to me and he's pandering,
Hmm.
panhandling. He wants money from me. I don't have any money, and he's following me around.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Um,
sounds like me.
then maybe go tell the officer
Hmm.
that there's a homeless man in need of assistance near me,
Yeah.
and maybe Glenn gets forcefully taken to a homeless shelter. But then,
Jeez, a nightmare.
you know, yeah, but then maybe he gets off the drugs that he was asking me for money for.
Right.
I have destroyed him. Now
Yeah.
Glenn is no longer on the street
Hmm.
asking random people for money. I have
Yeah.
destroyed that Glenn.
Right. You've
And
removed the situation from
right,
existence.
or
That
let's
makes
take a
sense.
more dramatic approach. Say I'm out walking with my girlfriend,
Hmm.
and really really ripped Hulk Hogan guy comes up and hits on my girlfriend, and
Hmm.
I say to stop, and he doesn't. And then I go up to the office. I go to an officer and say that there is, a rapist on the loose or something like that.
Right.
Like, and get rid of that guy. Or
Yeah.
I find that, or even more cunning, because he was the person who wrote these laws was all about cunning.
I'm tired.
Maybe I asked the guy for his social media handle. I go onto Instagram. I find out he's got a girlfriend.
Yeah.
And then I tell his girlfriend that, well, your boyfriend was hitting on my girlfriend all day long and would not stop today.
Hmm.
And then I go
Hmm.
about my business. They break up, and I've destroyed that man.
Yeah. True. True.
And so destroy was very subjective, but it's
Hmm.
basically don't let someone get away with inhibiting your autonomy.
Right. Yeah. I can get
And
behind that.
do it
Like, don't let
and
somebody walk on you.
right,
Um,
but in a manner that won't inhibit your own. Because
yeah.
if you kill the guy,
Right.
destroy
Right.
in the literal sense, if you kill him, then you give up all your autonomy
Hmm.
because you're going to jail. If
Hmm.
a guy walking by you bumps your shoulder and then you just turn around and just light the guy up with the nine you have in your
Right.
waistband,
Yeah, not good.
then you're going to jail.
Or even if he keeps
And
like if someone just keeps poking you on the shoulder, hey, 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 you're not gonna shoot them in
right,
the head.
right. It would be a
That's
very
not what
poor
it's saying.
response.
Right.
Yeah.
True story. So like,
But yeah. So go on.
oh, okay. Like, oh, did you have something else you were gonna say on this?
No, no.
Okay. So I mean, the way I look at it, like both of those sets of rules, there's a lot that's open to interpretation. Like, if you're really looking at them closely.
Objectively.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some good and there's some bad. Honestly, I feel like there's more good in the laws of the earth than in the Ten Commandments. More just like
Considering that
overt
40% of,
good
yes,
that's just pro-social values.
right,
Whereas the Ten Commandments, it's the like the first half of the laws approximately are just about worshiping God.
right.
It's not
So there's
really pro-social values. It's just religious dogma. It's
absolutely
bow your head and do what we say kind of stuff. Whereas Satanism is lift your head up and do what's right for you.
look in the mirror.
Um, mhm. But
Look in the mirror and look around you.
yeah, and like I think we're in what
About
hour
3 hours.
three of this,
Yeah.
so like the point I wanted to get to personally with comparing and contrasting Christianity and Satanism is that there's good and bad in both, despite the fact that they're viewed as polar opposites, where one is wholly good and one is wholly evil. The point is that these two very well known religious points of view are far more nuanced than we generally give them credit for. And that, applies to probably every religion. This isn't just about Christianity and Satanism.
It's the
This
ones
is the
we know the most
concept.
about.
Right, exactly. And they play well against each other, which is why they were good choices. It's not I'm trying to convince you to be a Satanist rather than a Christian. It's let's really
Right.
look at these things. There's good and bad in both. Acknowledge that there's bad in your religion. Acknowledge that not the people who aren't part of your religion aren't all bad. Like they're
Right.
telling people not to rape each other or hurt children or animals like unnecessarily. That's good, and it's coming from Satanism. So if you're thinking Satanism is inherently evil, there's good there. And so that's every religion, but then it's the concept of religion itself, which is where I really want us to sort of wrap this up.
Yeah.
It's like, given the good and bad in both of the religions, or even, satirical religions that we looked at today, is religion on the whole more good or bad? It's the question in the title. Um, like, is it more good or bad to even have these sets of rules? Is it more good or bad to have things that are open to interpretation? Like, is there's just so much to religion? I mean, what are your thoughts on the
So I
general
would go as far to
idea?
say as it is more good
Mm-hmm.
because it drives thought forward.
Ah, okay, yeah.
It causes me to think. If there were no 10 commandments and no 11 rules of the earth to compare them to,
Uh-huh.
then I would not have as much insight as I do upon myself
Mm-hmm.
or society as a whole.
Right, true. I like that.
Pedophilia would not exist
Mm-hmm.
if the church didn't exist.
Right, it would still be there.
It would still be there.
Mm-hmm.
It just happens to be a thing within the church
Right.
that
And
it
it's not like
that
the church,
doesn't happen everywhere.
right.
It
And
doesn't
it's
happen
under
in
the
every single
table.
church. It's
Uh-huh.
under the table, but it wouldn't not exist.
Right.
Church didn't exist, and so
Right.
thus, yeah, I think it's more
Church
good
doesn't
than bad.
create pedophilia.
It does not create pedophilia.
Yeah.
Yes, that is what I'm saying.
Church
It may be,
war would
yeah,
exist
it
without the
war would
church.
exist without the church.
Church doesn't create war
It's
in
just another
general.
reason we would find it.
Yeah.
There's a South Park episode where atheists in the future, there's different sects of atheists and they go to war with each other because there's
That's great.
dogmatic atheism
Uh-huh.
versus theistic atheism, and
Theistic
there's
atheism.
always going to be, yeah, there's always going to be an us versus them.
Right. And that's maybe more human
And
nature,
so
whether we
so
have
the
religion or not, is what you're saying.
refer to episode 1.
Right. Right.
Yes,
Human
yes,
nature, the myth was
yeah,
our
episode
first
1,
episode.
human nature.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't think that religion, I don't think that Christianity is inherently good or bad. I
Hmm.
think it is inherently a human facility.
Yeah. It's a
It is
construct.
it's a
It's
human construct,
mhm,
and it drives thought forward. And so I think that Christianity as an institution, I think
mhm,
it has done more good than bad.
mhm.
Um, because yeah, war would happen no matter what,
Right.
and
Yeah.
wars
It's
are
like it's
consequential.
because people wars are in antiquity especially fought over territory.
Right, and that's
Like
exactly what every war has been fought
yeah,
over.
they just use God as an excuse to take people's
Right,
land. So yeah, you're right. Like the same wars would probably happen. The
with but
Crusades would probably happen without religion.
but would the same humanitarian efforts happen without religion?
Right.
You know that
Okay.
that's
Good
that's
point.
that's what I have failed to see is atheist humanitarian efforts.
Yeah.
It's easy to gather a group of people in a
Hmm.
church to go and build somebody a house.
Hmm.
It's harder to go down to city hall
Right. And
or to go into a college
mhm,
and just gather volunteers. It's easier to use Christianity, use a faith as a stepping
yeah.
stone towards gathering sheep to
Right.
create change.
Right. And I mean, like the Satanists are doing that as atheists
As
in a way,
atheists.
but it's a little bit muddled. It's a little bit confused because it's still steeped in the language of religion. It's still we're using Satan, the character, as our mascot, pretty much. It's but as far as just purely secular, like we don't want to get any of that on us, any of that religious stuff. Groups of atheists. There are churches of atheists, but almost none. There's very few. And I guess it's harder. That's one thing I think that's good about religion in general is that it's a rallying point. It does bring people with common goals and values together, generally speaking, and they can do common good um, in a way that they couldn't without that community. So, yeah, I agree. Like, I think I agree that religion, to me, is more good than evil, generally speaking. Um, yeah, because even my own personal church experience, my journey, my faith journey, uh, is, there was some evil, evil stuff that I experienced that, I had to come through on the other side of and not choose not to go back to church because of just how bad some things were. But if I look at my whole journey, like I just wouldn't have the life I have. All of the things that are good in my life, all of the
Absolutely.
things that are precious in my life, I wouldn't have if I hadn't been involved in a church through all those years in my life. Like I wouldn't have you. We wouldn't
Uh,
know each other as far as I'm aware.
exactly.
Like, yeah,
Right.
this podcast doesn't exist. This podcast where we bash on religion every week, just about, wouldn't
Would not
exist
exist.
without religion, without Christianity. The Battlestar Galactica would never
Would
have
not be a thing.
set sail into the stars. Yeah, it wouldn't be a thing. So, so yeah, I have to agree. I think religion in general is more good than evil. Um,
And I
so what
think it
else?
will continue to evolve.
Yeah,
It will continue to change lives for the worse and mostly for the better.
right.
At least here in the United States, I think that youth will continue to gather and continue to pioneer forward
Mm-hmm.
because gay marriage is continually more and more accepted, at least among my former denomination. And
Right.
it's a battle.
Mm-hmm.
It is a battle, But guess what? We're the future,
Right.
and the old people will keep dying,
Right.
and
And new
the
people keep being born.
newer, more accepting generation will continue to be born,
Hmm.
and religion's face will change over
Right.
time, just as it
Adapt or
has.
die. That's the rule, you know. Religion will adapt or die. Well, any given religion.
Right.
I don't know if all religion will ever be like a thing of the past, but every individual religion either adapts or dies as time goes on.
Right.
Christianity has
Like
adapted numerous times, hence Sunday instead of Saturday,
right. Like
for a very
Hinduism
small
is interesting
example.
to me because nobody
Uh-huh.
can convert to Hinduism.
Is that true? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
no, you cannot convert to Hinduism. You have to
Hmm.
be born into it.
Interesting.
And so that's an interesting one to me.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, you cannot convert. You cannot be a converted Hindi.
Hmm.
Maybe there's new sects, maybe new generations, new kids. But when I was learning about
Hmm.
it in school, you cannot. It is a how do you say not hierarchical, but it is passed down. It's generational.
Yeah,
Uh, but
I
so that's
see.
an interesting
And
the one to me
yeah,
that you have to be born into because Christianity, they love their damn Christian converts.
right. I mean, that's what they're all about, really. Like up
The
front,
mission,
it's
yeah, the
convert.
mission to spread the word,
Hmm. Which is
and
sometimes taken to a terrible extreme. But
awful extreme.
yeah, we already covered that part
Yeah, we did.
in our three
Yeah,
hours.
yeah.
Of,
Sheesh, I knew this
honest,
was going to be a long one.
I think our episodes keep getting longer. I'm surprised it took us this long to go this long, like to do almost 3 hours. Um, and I mean, some podcasts run that long all the time. It's not a bad thing. I'm just interested. I think it's interesting. Like if we can take a topic that deep for that long, it's pretty good. Are you looking something up?
Yeah, no, I was, but
Oh, you
I was
changed
just
your
looking up,
mind?
and yeah, I changed my mind.
Like
It's
Hindu?
gonna, yeah, it's gonna take me more than just
Oh, I
5
see.
seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. But like all religions, it's like they've got their good, they've got their bad. At the core, what they're doing is bringing people together and creating a
Right,
community
a
with
confluence of ideas.
common values. Um, so that's not a bad thing,
No,
in my
I
opinion.
don't think so either. Of all the bad things that come from it, I think more good comes from it.
Yeah.
I think a gathering of people is always more good than it can be bad, despite
Hmm.
what may happen during that gathering.
Right. And like for me, that's actually an epiphany from this conversation that we're in the midst of. Like, I would say before we started recording this episode, if you were to ask me without us having just delved in and picked it apart, I would have said religion is more evil than good, because it's in my face a lot more. The bad is in my face a lot more. But when for this podcast, we sat down and actually dug in and really looked at all the nuance and made ourselves list all those good things that Christianity does. And it changed my mind. Like, yeah, religion
Yeah,
is not the worst thing in the world.
no, it's absolutely not. And like depending on the person, it can be incredibly subjective.
Hmm.
Like, people can claim Christianity and it will take one relationship for them to question
Right.
their faith. And the same
True.
thing for atheists. I've known atheists that
Hmm.
get one relationship and they begin to believe.
Right.
And that's all it takes sometimes
Hmm.
is another bond, another relationship,
Yeah.
another experience to get
Hmm.
them to, switch from one side to the other.
Yeah.
And it's not small minded to do so either.
Right.
if anything, it's, it's openness, maybe a little
Hmm.
too open,
Hmm.
depending if you flip flop back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, depending on the relationship you're currently
Right.
engaged most in.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. I think before this podcast, I probably would have said hands down, religion's more bad than good.
Hmm. That's interesting. I mean, that's what I like about it. That's what I like about this. The premise of Autodidactica is to be open-minded, to seek knowledge and information, and to look at things from different angles. And it's like if we can literally change our own opinions by just having a conversation about something, that's fantastic.
Right.
Like it's good
And if you
not to
made
be
it this
rigid.
far, you're awesome.
Yeah, you are. For real. um, we should probably wrap this up though,
Probably
because
pretty quick too.
I'm yawning more and more, and I know we've got things to do. We've got a New Year's party here tomorrow. That's
Yeah.
or
Yeah. So
actually, is it today? No, it's still
no,
tomorrow. No,
not still tomorrow. Yeah.
okay, it's
So
barely before midnight.
yeah. So plug your things and let's plug our next episode. And
Right, let's plug stuff and plug it up and get out.
yeah, that's my life motto. That's one of our holy commandments. Is
Right.
plug it and get out.
All right. So if you like us, like you should like us, because we like us and we like you, Matt, if you want to stalk him more, he's in a band called My Perfect End. I got it right. I always get your bands mixed up in my head. Because they start with my. But My Perfect End, you can listen to it anywhere. You can find music, Spotify, all the places. Um, YouTube, they've got a YouTube channel. Is your mic on? Because you're not, no sound is coming through, but your lips are moving.
It is now.
Okay.
Well, you read my lips perfectly for the last 3 minutes. Then
I just know you so well that I hear your voice, even when it's
yeah,
not coming out. And me, if you want to stalk me on the internet, please do, but only on the internet. Don't stalk us at home, because we didn't make enough food for you, and it's vegan
yeah.
anyway. You might not like it.
You might not
Um,
like it.
yeah, you might hate it, but we like it. Um, so me, you can stalk me, GlennSladeClarkJr.com. Glenn has two N's in it. Just so I think that's somewhere on, and it's all going to be in the links down below if you're watching on YouTube. Um, but yeah, GlennSladeClarkJr.com. You can check out my novels, my short fiction, my other YouTube channel that's just me, um, and all the episodes of Autodidactica are linked on my website as well. So that's how, if you want to email us, please email us. We need to check the email before next week. I'm sure last time I checked it, there was nothing. But we do need to check that because the whole idea is if you email us, and we're going to check the email before next episode.
I'm
So
checking it right now.
are you? Is there nothing? I'm curious.
We'll get there off camera.
Okay, off camera. All right. But yeah, so email us at autodidactica podcast at gmail.com. I think it's Gmail.
Gmail.
Okay. Like that's how bad we are. I never even remember to tell people to email us, but please do, or leave a comment below if you're watching this on YouTube, and we will read those things and we will respond if you have topic ideas, if you have things you want to argue with us about that we said, if you want to correct us, please do. Um, just anything you want to chime in with your own opinions, go for it. We want to hear your opinions. But that's it for now. A mere 3-hour
Mere
podcast.
3 hour podcast. Yeah.
I'm just amazed that we could keep on topic for that long without bouncing off to something else. We're
Hey,
getting we're
you
getting
get
pretty
me
good at
talking
this.
about Satanism, and I
Right.
could do a whole 3 hour
Yeah,
podcast that would basically just be a sermon.
right. Yeah, and I could do that with just religion in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess that is all for now.
Next
So,
week
oh yeah.
we're back with karma.
karma.
Yeah, so
So
that's
that'll
gonna
be
be a fun
interesting.
one.
Yeah, I mean they're all fun. I have fun with all of these. So
Same,
yeah.
same Z's as the kids say.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, next week karma. If you missed last week, it was the afterlife.
Right.
Um, and yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah. So we're
Um,
good. We one
yeah,
day.
talk to me about religion.
Yeah, one day we'll wrap this podcast up. I don't know, because we keep saying stuff. That's what we do in real life too. We're like,
Yeah,
all right, it's time for bed.
we're about to do
Anyway,
that
like,
right after this.
yeah, I know we are.
There's another 3 hour podcast after the podcast
Right,
ends.
because we just keep talking. We're a couple of chatty Cathys, but we're
We are
happy. We're happy. But we're gonna
we're
stop
happy
talking to you
Catholics.
now for your own sake. And
Yes.
right,
Go
so
about your day.
all the ways, stalk us, email us, messages, or drop a note on face or my dang it, I'm so tired that I'm just calling
MySpace. Yeah.
like what's MySpace? Like YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, drop us a note and we will read them. We'll respond to the ones that are, we find worthy of response. And we'll be here. We'll see you next time talking about karma.
Talking about karma.
In the
Till next
meantime,
time.
yeah, take it easy.
Love you.